And welcome to Rewind Reviews, a podcast where we take a look at movies from our past. Today we are looking at the absolutely unhinged John Travolta, Nicolas Cage movie, Face Off. So for those who haven't listened to this podcast before, the usual structure is we do a little bit of history with the film, just our personal history, because that can sometimes inform a nostalgic review, you know, what you thought of it as a kid, when you're sort of looking back at it. And then we're going to obviously do we'll do some overall thoughts, then we'll go into sort of the nitty-gritty of the film, including spoilers, and we'll do like between the two, we'll do some sort of recommendation, whether, you know, let people know whether it's worth watching before you hear the spoilers or not. I think of the two of us, I think I'm the only one with a history. Is that right, Chris? Did you see this film? So this is new to you, right? This was your first time.
Yeah. And I think in a way it would be best. So I have no history with the film. This is the first time I've ever seen it. And in a way, I think let's get your history, let's get your views then, and let's get your views now. I think that's the place to start. That's the most interesting. The difference between, you know, how you felt then, how you feel now, I think is interesting. So yeah, give me your history, and then take us into the future, Dan.
Take us into
the present day, rather.
Yeah, please don't let go into the future. It's things are bleak enough now. I dread every day. Don't send me into the future. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life when I've woke up with the same anxiety every day of, oh, what's happening now? Look at my phone. Yeah, more genocide. All right. Yeah, cool. Oh, that fucking idiot's still in the White House. All right. Yeah, okay. Martial law. Yeah, sure. All right, fine. Like, it's just every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, what now? There's what my 10 minutes of doom scrolling that I allow myself to do before I do anything else, and I should really start. It's probably unhealthy. The thing is, if I didn't do that, I'd do it at the end of the day. So, you know. And
that's fair.
I think doing it at the beginning of the day and then having the day to process the shit show is probably better.
I sometimes forget, like, if I've been busy, that I've not looked at the news, and like I will look at the time and be like, it's 11. It's 11:30. If I look at the news now, that takes me to 12. And then I'm up another half an hour just trying to do something to bring my mood back up.
Yeah, yeah. Just watching videos of people playing with puppies or something. Yeah, it's not good.
Even anyway. The weather. There's an article I just clicked on. Like, okay, well, what's an example headline? And this is the example headline: UK braces for 34-degree temperatures as heat health alerts take effect. And then literally the first, like, you know, of the real of news about it. The first headline is it too hot to work? Brackets, legally speaking, close brackets. It's you know, it's that sort of shit. Even nice weather is nowadays like, is it too hot to work? It's, you know, we need some health alerts. It's not good. I mean, it is, but you know, we're Dan and I are boiling for you in tiny rooms with, you know, with no aircon or fan ability because we're recording. So yeah.
I just did a scroll on like BBC just to see how far down do I have to go to see a story that would be considered positive, right? Just, you know, just something, right? And the best I could find, it's quite far down. I mean, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's 11 stories down, 11 stories downish, and it's not even good news for everyone. It's Taylor Swift announces 12th studio album. Anyway, right. Look, well, there you go. That dates this podcast. It's the 12th of August for us. Well, listen. Speaking of the future, hello to listeners who are definitely listening to this in the future because we're recording these quite in advance this time. Look, let's get to Face Off. Let's get to Face Off. As a kid, I was very much into action films of any type. To be honest with you, I was, Die Hard was a gateway drug to a lot of other sort of movies. Different tones. Obviously, this isn't a sort of normal man survival sort of action movie where it's very situational action. This is more of a shoot, bang, bang, everything explodes on contact sort of movie, which is John Woo's specialty, to be honest. But I didn't know that as a kid, and I remember just finding this movie very, very engaging as a kid because I think I was very compelled by the sort of archetypal characters. It seems like a complicated plot if you try to describe it, but it's actually a very simple plot, which you can then hang all of the bells and whistles of the madness of this movie on it. And, when you boil it down, especially from a character work perspective, it is a very thin film. There's not really a lot of growth. It is all very solve the situational physical problem that has occurred. And, I remember watching it as a kid and just being really, engaged with the action. And I always remember there's a mild feeling of dread I would always feel as a kid, even when I knew how the movie ended, at the point in which the switch has happened. I'll leave it at that for now so people don't know. Fully happened. And you realise what trouble our lead character, Sean Archer, is in the prison. And I remember, even as a kid, finding that very effective. And this is one of those movies where, as well, and I will say, there's less surprise for me here. I was confident that I was going to still enjoy this. And I must caveat this with... This is one of those reviews where I do feel like I'm going to be biased towards the film because of nostalgia for it. Because even before I sat down to watch it for the second time, so much of it was so ingrained into my memory. I kind of feel like I knew how I was going to react to this film. But as a kid, it was just one of those ones that was in my rotation. I had it on VHS, absolutely adored it, watched it all the time. I know huge chunks of this movie by heart. I even know the shot composition off by heart for certain scenes, because I just remember it so distinctly. So I wasn't massively shocked to discover when I sat down to rewatch it that I had an absolute ton of fun rewatching this film. It is goofy as hell, and I do think an audience's enjoyment of this film is going to come down to how willing they are to go with the film on its madness. I think if you want to take this at face value and assume the film is taking itself seriously and therefore everything in this film is ridiculous and broken in terms of there's just the logic, the choices so many of the characters make are absolutely insane. Not to mention the questions about the technology that exists in this world that seems to be present day 90s, but has this incredible face swapping technology. If you're going to let all those bumps, very much like Goonies, actually, just coincidentally, because we reviewed that last week, I could absolutely see somebody having every single one of those bumps be an issue for them and them not being able to then enjoy the goofiness. And I think that comes down to your trust of the director and whether it was intent or not. If you think they were deliberately making a goofy movie, then you're going to go along on that ride and you're going to have fun with it. If you think they were trying to make a serious movie and it's wound up like this, then you're not going to enjoy the movie, I don't think. I think it's going to be quite a difficult watch because I will say the criticism that's come to me on rewatch is I don't think the action is as good as I remember. I think it's shot excellently, which can sometimes trick your brain into thinking that that's good action. But a lot of it is just people shooting at each other. There's not a lot of situational antics that are actually bring up tension. There's so many cool shots. I mean, the Dove budget alone must have been massive on this movie. And there's tons of amazing visuals throughout those, because John Woo is an amazing action director, but there's very little tension to the action scenes. It's often just a lot of strings of shots. You always know where everyone is in each scene and what the goals are for all the characters, but it is usually just kill each other. And that is maybe not the most tension you can sort of achieve doing action. So I think the action actually is the thing that suffered most on my rewatch. But I loved it then. I still love it now. It's dumb as hell. It is literally one of the dumbest movies you could possibly watch. But I have such a weird soft spot for it because it's so goofy, so fun, and the performances are great. I still stand by that Travolta and Cage are having the most fun, which means when I'm watching them, I'm having fun. So yeah, I not a massive shock. There are some things I noticed with my critic hat on that I will point out as things that don't work, but particularly around the action. But I had a good time rewatching it. So nothing has really changed from my perspective. So how about you, Chris, going into it for the first time with? I mean, was very careful, no knowledge. I didn't. You even asked if someone's face actually comes off in the end of the last episode, and I was like, I'm saying nothing, mate. You watch the movie. You find out. And I was so excited to hear what your reaction to the insanity that is this movie was.
Yeah, well, I mean, a face does come off. Is the spoilers is the answer to that question. I fucking loved it. I had the time of my life watching it. I thought it was fucking brilliant.
I'm so glad.
I had so much fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. Right?
I honestly, I think there are moments where they absolutely are taking it seriously, and there are also moments where the movie knows what it is. And because like, so for example, like there's a line of dialogue where a character says, "What planet am I on?" And it's like, it's there to be like, we should acknowledge that this has gone proper fucking insane now.
Yeah.
And then there's also, mirror symbolism and like the motif of him getting the bag of like with the guns and all that sort of stuff. So it's doing both. But this movie is essentially, it's the Fast and Furious, but they've jumped to the sort of later movies. This movie is literally a later installment in the Fast and the Furious franchise. The technology is insane and not believable. There's all these attempts to do character drama. There's insane, implausible action. And we fucking love those movies, and as such, I love this movie. I had, excuse me, I was up very late last night watching Breaking Bad. For another podcast, which is already out actually. If you want to hear our review of Breaking Bad series 4,
yes.
By
the time they hear this, that will most definitely be out. And that will, in fact, it will be basically old at that point. It'll be episode 329, I think, of Nothing But Static. So
there's a chance. We will have even done series 5 by this point. But anyway, I absolutely loved it. There's one thing I hated. I have one major complaint.
Mm-hmm. Which I guess we'll come to. But
literally. Sorry.
Which I guess we'll come to when we're getting a bit more like into the weeds.
Yeah. We'll go. We can start spoilers with that if you want. But do I recommend the film? Yep. Do I want them to remake this every 10 years with a different set of actors? Yep.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
I just don't know. I don't know why I don't know how they haven't. But I think the slight problem is it's lightning in a bottle in terms of like the two actors, their chemistry, the fun.
Mm-hmm. The director, I mean, John Woo. Look, for his flaws, and he's by no means one of my favorite directors, but like for all his flaws, I mean, he is the perfect person to helm this film in this moment for sure. It's without question.
So I think they would struggle to capture it again, and I think people would struggle. Like, I understand. Apparently, this film got really good reviews when it came out. I don't think it would now. And yeah, I think it would potentially have an audience depending on who the pair were. And look, there's, the movie. I think the movie's asking big questions. How long do you have to not have sex with someone before you don't recognize their penis? Just the real.
Well, it either asks that question or asks the question of, were they so detail orientated they also made that look the same?
Maybe, yeah, no, yeah. But it's weird because they can sort of give the impression they're not really going to do anything with the bodies, and then later on he's like, "I don't know what I hate more, your face or your body." Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, but he's got like they remove the scar, they're removing they made some changes to the bodies for sure.
Maybe. Oh yeah, I meant to. Speaking of penises, I meant to look something up. Hold on.
That is a strange segue into whatever it is you're looking up. But I'm curious.
Hold on.
Okay.
So, apparently, I was wrong. It doesn't prove my point. I wanted to know how many doctors were present for a circumcision, because given the surgery that happens in this film, it feels like it should be more than one man taking on this surgical challenge. But again, and it's not even like last week we did a lot of, there are these flaws, but it doesn't matter, we still had fun. I don't even see them as flaws here. I had so much fun. Like, it's just that's the world of the movie. It's a cartoon. It's a live action cartoon where people could get major surgery and be out within a day. And also be fine and show no scars of any kind. That's just the world of the movie, baby.
It won't surprise you to hear that the original script was a set in the future, was a science fiction movie. Right.
Yeah, well, that you sort. I did wonder after. I was thinking about like the prison in particular and the technology in the prison, and then I was like, I don't really remember people on the phone too much, like, or on a computer particularly. So I did wonder whether I did, and I it was one of those I'd have to go back to rewatch it to see. But I did wonder whether you could already make an argument that the film is... Do you know what I mean? They deliberately don't seem to date it too much. So there's nothing to say it's not in the future, slightly. Like,
right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, with the exception of sort of like the fashion, yeah, for sure.
Actually, some of the computers in the prison. But yeah, I loved it. I'd highly recommend it. I want to watch it again. I might pick it.
Did you did you watch it with Jess by any chance?
No, I don't think she'd have enjoyed it.
I was wondering
So I made it. I made a decision to watch it on my own. I haven't had a lot of time recently with Jess, and I thought, you know what, I'll save her. Let's have an evening. You know, we're not getting many evenings together. Let's get an evening where we can watch something we both want to watch. But the two friends that we did the Fast and Furious marathon with, I wanna get together with them and watch Face Off all together. So I will make her watch it at some point for sure. But no, she didn't watch it this time.
I'm so glad you liked it. It's one of those things where, like, I do feel like for a lot of people, this film will be 50-50. Like, I do think you're either just going to go along with it and you're going to sort of enjoy the goofiness of it and the silliness of it and sort of hand yourself over to that, accept that that's the case and enjoy it for what it is, or you're going to spend the whole movie feeling a bit irritated with your arms folded going, but that doesn't make any sense. You can't... Why hasn't he got any scars because a laser hit him? Doesn't make any sense. Why is everything exploding on contact? Doesn't make any sense. You know, because towards the end of the movie, it very much gets that. Like every single thing they touch seems to explode behind them, which is kind of insane. But I think again that's tone of the movie, because I remember there was a James Bond film, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the Daniel Craig ones, where he shot a gun. It was like a pistol at a building, and the building exploded, and maybe he hit a gas tank or something. I can't remember, but the resulting explosion did not really jibe with the gunshot to me. Like it felt out. But those Daniel Craig Bond movies were deliberately quite grounded and gritty and very sort of in a world that resembled ours to some degree. This movie's on another planet. From minute one. Like, and what I love about this movie so much is just a quick overall sort of thought before I get it. We sort of, and I'm recommending it for sure, but just very quickly, what I think I love about this movie mostly is how over the top everything is. It's so needlessly so. So there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where he's chasing down the bad guy, and they come to an impasse where the two of them are in like a room, at an airport. And like a back room with like mechanical parts everywhere and stuff. And they end up guns on each other, and then he knocks the gun out the guy's hand, and he gets him down, and he could just disarm him at that point and knock him out, which is what would happen in any other movie. But no, he accidentally falls back, knocks on a jet engine, and then gets kicked into it, so it blasts him down this crazy long corridor where he hits a big cage at the end. And it's like... that's this movie in a nutshell. He could have just sort of disarmed him, knocked him out, and that would have been the end of the scene. But no, this movie is like Spinal Tapping it. It's like, what's the 11? What's the most absurd thing we can do in this moment? The movie is always looking for the next like bizarre choice to make, and I love that. I love that for it. It is very much. Why do something sort of simple when something insane can happen instead? And that is this movie top to bottom basically. So yeah, I'm definitely recommending. I also had a really good time watching it, and I'm glad you had a good time, Chris, because that's sort of like, I feel better being honest about my gushing of how much I love this movie, because I was preparing to temper myself. Because if you didn't enjoy it, that would really demonstrate that I am just a bit nostalgia blinded, not because we have to agree, but because I feel like you're more objective in the situation, right? So if you'd have come in and said it's really not a good movie, it's broken in all these ways, I think I might have been more inclined to at least sort of like nudge my excitement for the film, my enjoyment of the film, just down a little, just to sort of like try to balance myself from the nostalgia of it all. But because you enjoyed it, I'm like, well, maybe this is just a really great movie.
Yeah, I think it is a great movie, but I think, like you said, it is that caveat of it won't be a great movie for some people. For some people, this will be a awful, B movie with a lot of budget, because it is all about how far you're willing to go with the world. But if you go with the world, then the movie rewards you with a hell of a lot of fun. So yeah, I honestly, it's. I looked back at the list to be like, when was the last time I had this much fun watching a movie? And like, we're talking like seasons ago, and I ended up on like Good Burger because that's just one of my favorite movies. So yeah, I can't recommend it highly.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, I think enjoyed it is the right word. Like, and it's almost like, is it a good movie is a hard question to answer, because you would quantify good movie in a few ways that this would fail. But, does it feel realistic? Does the character work hit you? Like, all of that sort of stuff, But I don't. For me, it was such an enjoyable movie. That none of that stuff is not. It's not that none of that stuff matters. It's that it almost feels irrelevant because I just had so much fun, except for one element. You wanna go spoilers and talk about the element I didn't like?
Yeah, I have a suspicion, but I'd be curious to.
What's your suspicion?
I think it might be some of the needlessly creepy elements of Castor Troy might be a problem, where he was sort of weirdly perving on the daughter and the poor girl at the church at the beginning of the movie. I had a feeling that might be a barrier for some people. Am I in the right direction?
No, because I think he's not. He's the perving. He's the villain.
Yeah,
he's the villain, and he's not perving on here. Oh, we haven't really. Can you even sum up the movie?
I could try. Okay, I could try if you want me to give it a go. I could try.
Yeah, give it a go.
So this movie is about a sort of supervillain named Castor Troy and his longtime sort of rival Sean Archer, who works for the FBI, the CIA, one of them. Just a generic. I'm sure they say it, but it's like just American law enforcement. And I
think it's meant to be like a mysterious off the grid organization that appears to have a very public office in the middle of town.
Right, fair enough. Okay. Right, either way, he's a popo. He's a policeman. He's trying to catch the bad guy, and bad guy has planted a bomb, but he's now in a coma, and his brother is in prison. So they decide to put him through a surgery where they take the face off coma guy, supervillain, and put it on Sean Archer, John Travolta's face. So he looks and sounds like Castor Troy, and then they're going to put him in prison with the brother to get the location of the bomb. One of those we talked about it last week, logic bumps that a person not enjoying this movie and going with it would come across straight away at this point, other than the technology being absurd, is of course, why would you keep that secret so much? Why would so few people know about this operation? The only person you're looking to trick is in prison. He's not going to find out. They could have told the guards. They could have, you know what I mean? They could have told a bunch of people that this was happening. So it would have prevented a lot of trouble. But anyway, he goes in to the prison as supervillain, but really he's secret good guy, super agent Sean Archer, because the faces have been swapped. And unfortunately, Castor Troy wakes up, kills everyone who knows, and takes his face. So now the villain looks and sounds like the hero, and the hero in prison looks and sounds like the villain. And that's our sort of setup for the rest of the movie, which is about him sort of escaping and getting his face back and stopping the villain, who is abusing his newfound power as secret police super agent or whatever government agency he works for. So I think that's a reasonable summary. I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. So my big issue is plot related.
Okay.
I fucking hate I don't mind as much the subplot of Castor also has a son a similar age to the age that Sean's son died.
Yes.
You could do some interesting shit with that. The notion that at the end, the one plot thing I do bump, it's mad. Like face swapping with no scars, fine, I'll go with. But the notion that I just think it underpins all the fucking growth for the end to essentially be, we've got a new kid. Like, what the fuck? Like, oh guys, got a thing to show you. This boy, who's the age that our son was and your brother was when he was shot down and killed, and looks fucking like him, is gonna come in. Hey, Jamie, my daughter that I've struggled to bond with, but now I finally have because of my destructive behaviour. Do you want to show him to his room? Yeah, okay. What the fuck? Appalling. Like an awful choice that affects how you feel about the growth of the character and how they've resolved their issues. Just the psychological implications of, oh well, we've got a new boy now. Like the way more interesting thing to do. It's darker, but this movie has done dark things. I think the more interesting thing to have done with the son and what I thought they were going to do is it would be his ultimate revenge, and he's turning. One of the plots is he sort of loses himself in Castor way more than Castor loses himself in Sean. And does he kill the boy? Does he? Well, you killed, tit for tat. You killed my son. I'm going to kill yours. Obviously not. He's gone through the pain of losing a son. But what they chose to do with that storyline, I'd have rather they just took it out and he didn't even have a son, because I thought they didn't develop the idea of that son then living with them and essentially being adopted by them. They didn't develop it nowhere near as much as they should have done for it to not make me feel fucking like it was horrendous and kind of disgusting. So yeah, that was my big gripe, Dan.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I didn't bump up against it as much. I did always find it very funny and convenient. I was always like, oh yeah, just they've just inherited a child. Like, and they were just accepting that, and it's just, oh yeah, you lost a kid. Oh, we got a kid back here. 1 second. Oh, there he is. Oh yeah, just have him. That's fine. Yeah. Just do it. Like the convenience of it, the idea that anyone would just agree to that is bananas to me. Like the fact he brings the kid home without discussing it with his wife and daughter is also bananas, because like, what if the wife was not okay with it? The kid's already running around the house like, I've got a new home, and she's like, I'm not cool with this. You've got a bigger problem. I don't know why I made that kid like sort of fucking Harry Potter. It's like a fucking Dickensian chimney sweep they've inherited. Why is the house covered in I don't know, Daddy. I just felt like I needed to sweep that chimney. Fucking Castor Troy's fucking kid ruining this house. I knew I'd have a problem with that guy forever.
You're really running with this bit, aren't you?
I don't know. It amused me. So yeah, I'm easily amused, Chris. Leave me alone.
Fair enough.
No, so I think like I do think there's a lot of convenience to it. That's more the issue for me, because I think like, from a character perspective, the movie's so thin with the character work that like the implications wider than that don't bother me too much, but it is a problem. You're absolutely right. It's like, what are we even trying to say with this? Like, what's the purpose of this? What is it? What are we doing? It doesn't really. So it's like a logic bump for a bunch of reasons, but also it doesn't. We don't gain anything. Like, am I just supposed to be happy that his family has been righted? Well, I'm never going to feel like that. You've not resurrected his fucking actual child. He's still lost a son. Nothing changes that. Are we saying that by having this, taking on board this son, he's now emotionally over it? If you are, you're not making that very clear. Because it's clear at the start of the movie they're all still tormented by the death of this child.
Yeah, it strikes me as relatively unhealthy as decisions go. Like, and I think it's partly that as well. If it cut to like, because also right, like, the face is beginning to get if it comes up on the screen, if we don't see him return with the right face, but it comes up on the screen 6 months later, 1 year later, and we see them with the kid. And it's not necessarily, you could interpret it as they're hanging out with the kid, or they're spending time with him, or he's, making sure he's okay. And they keep it vague as to whether they're living together. Fine. Like, I think that does a lot of good that also explains why there's no fucking scars, even though this man has had facial surgery twice. But to do, he's gonna live with us now, and isn't it fucking great? Really, yeah.
A question, something else you said as well about like, oh, maybe we're gonna use it to sort of like, a son for a son sort of thing. Because actually, in my description, I didn't actually explain one of the main reasons Sean Archer has got such a hard on for taking down Castor Troy, and why he's so obsessed with him is because Castor Troy tried to kill Sean Archer years before and had essentially, in the midst of that choice, killed his son. Had pulled a bullet through Sean, but Sean was with his son. It went through him, killed the son. In terms of the angle of like Sean's losing it a bit, he's sort of succumbing to Castor Troy's madness to some degree. Could he potentially threaten that kid? The problem there is, and this is the right choice for Castor. Castor clearly doesn't give a shit about that kid, right? Doesn't give a toss. I know that he doesn't know about the kid as part of the story, right? But like, there's no way, even if he knew that kid was his, he would give a shit. I feel. So there's an element of, I don't know if that would actually, if threatening Castor's kid would cause any issues at all. I don't think he would gain anything from doing that as well, because it's pretty clear Castor doesn't care.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'm even necessarily talking about like threatening him with the kid, but just like just a moment of him going mad, monologuing to the mirror and being like, eye for an eye, I could kill his boy. Like, do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they didn't do that. Like, I don't think that, but I was just at that point just throwing out shit I thought they were going to do. Like, but as much as I don't like that and think it would have been an awful lot of work to make that work, the kid ultimately becoming a replacement for their son is the worst version of what they could have done with that kid. Like I said, I'd have rather they just didn't have the kid at all. So I think that would have been better.
Yeah, I agree with the movie we got. I will say one thing actually that it will depend on how deep you went after you watched the movie. Did you happen to find or stumble across the existence of the alternate ending?
No. What happens in that?
So in the alternate ending, it's as is here for the most part. We see him through the window. He comes in. He's himself. He's smiling. He does the hand thing, the stupid hand thing. He has the kid, and you're like, oh, okay, all is the same. And then he goes into the bedroom, and the wife's in the bedroom. He goes into sort of the ensuite bathroom, and suddenly we see him like the music turns. It's a bit like sinister, and he's like head down, hands on the sink, and he looks up in the mirror as the wife comes in, and they both see in the reflection Castor Troy, and they scream and react, and then the wife hugs him like we're over this horrendous thing, and he gives this sort of sinister smile that she can't see because they're hugging, leaving it ambiguous as to whether this is Castor Troy or Sean Archer. Now, I hate this ending. I don't want the ambiguous ending at all. I like the hero getting the win, right? But I wonder if the kid is almost a hangover from that, and the reason he's chosen to bring the kid into their home in thinking was that maybe because it is Castor, not Sean. So in that version of the ending, bringing the kid makes more sense, even if I don't like that ending. Does that make sense? So I wonder if it's they chopped off the ambiguous bit to leave it a happy ending, and that's kind of left the kid in a bit of in weird limbo, but they shot that, so it exists. It's like it's part of that sequence. So I wondered about that, because otherwise then you're asking yourself the question as well of like, where did the kid go? What happened to the kid? There was a child we protected for a good 30 minutes of this movie.
That's why I think that's why, again, ultimately I'm saying get rid of that plot entirely.
Yes,
but
I agree.
I think that if you are going to have the kid, a vague X amount of time later, and they're with the kid, would suggest that something that clench your bumhole, Dan, and bringing up Harry Potter. But in the epilogue of Harry Potter, spoilers, they managed to show and make it clear that Harry had been looking after that
Teddy
kid.
Lupin.
the kid. I'm being
Teddy
very
Lupin.
vague in case. Yeah, okay, well, let's not be vague. Teddy Lupin. Like, he's looking after Teddy Lupin, and I think a scene where you could interpret it as, oh, maybe he's living with them, or you could choose to interpret it as, oh, they're taking care of each other. I think something like that is just a little cleaner. The one thing I like about the alternative ending is the open list for a sequel. I mean, it's mad to me. I don't know what the box office was and the success, but it seems insane that this movie didn't get a sequel, especially when there's so many ways to do it. Like, he's already woken up and survived a drugged-induced coma. Like, the notion of, oh, actually, he did survive and he just got taken away to recover. Or even the notion of he didn't survive, but we did keep his face because we thought it might be useful. And, Sean's got to pull himself back in because one of the villains that he worked with is loose and is planning some shit, and the only person that can try and get to him is Castor Troy. Like, there's so many ways you could do a sequel.
Yeah, it is weird that they've never done it, and I know that there's one in development now, and they're saying it's like it is going to be a sort of sequel, like because originally there was a plan for like in the early, I think it was 2010s, there was a plan for a sort of a reboot, like a clean break, just do this movie again. And then maybe if it's successful, spin it off, but with new actors, whatever. And it just didn't work out, didn't happen. Production limbo, couldn't find a director, whatever, couldn't find a writer, I'm not sure. But couldn't get the script right, probably, is the actual answer. But the movie didn't happen, and now there's talk of doing an actual sequel to this film, like a full-on sequel. And I assume it would have two younger, sort of hotter actors, so to speak. I don't mean hot as in attractiveness, I mean hot as in, like, more popular. So, God, Christ, it's going to be like Timothy Chalamet, isn't it? Oh, Christ. And fucking Ryan Gosling or something.
I'm trying to think who it could be, because who's the equivalent? I mean,
I know who I'd cast.
Of now is still Nicolas Cage. Go on.
I'm sorry. It's Jake Gyllenhaal and Daniel Radcliffe. That's who it is.
But which one's which? I don't even know from that.
Well, that's why that's the answer. Because both could play both. I'm so convinced that that's the answer. But then I think they've got too different a physical body frame. You'd probably have to pick someone as wide-shouldered as Jake Gyllenhaal to match Jake Gyllenhaal, or as because they're both in very good shape, obviously, but like they don't have the same frame, which would make it harder to be convincing that they did it. But
let's talk about that, because I did deep dive enough to know that one of the issues people bump up against is him sleeping with his wife.
Yes.
And I gotta tell you, I don't. The movie makes it clear that they've not had sex in 2 months. I don't know if maybe that's a long enough period to get away with this, but there's candlelight, swept up in the moment. Like I think if you're willing to forget, here's my thing. Okay, I'm willing to accept that if you are also complaining that it's mad that no one recognizes mannerisms, speech patterns,
behavioral
changes, behavioral changes. Yeah. Like if you're sat there going, all of this is insane, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, and that's not a penis pun, then fine. But if you haven't got a problem with any of that, and then you're going, what's going on with the sex scene, then I don't think you could do both. Because if you're willing to accept the other stuff, then you can also wish the sex stuff away with, well, you know, he's more enthusiastic in general at that point. They haven't done it in a long time. Maybe they have got similar penises. There's candlelight. She can't really see. Yeah, that's what's your view, Dan?
Same as you. I think if you're going to start pulling at that thread, then you are the person I was describing at the beginning of this podcast that's just fully not going to enjoy this movie. Like, as I think if you're going to question that, then as you said, you know, there's a million other things you're going to question. If it's just that, then I find it strange that was a barrier for you when other things weren't. I find that picking on that one when you could go, well, wait a minute, how did Castor Troy know enough about Archer's job to just step into it for seemingly weeks? Does he know the police procedures enough how the paperwork works? Like, does he know the logins for the computers? Like, how did he just, like, if even with someone who's got a simple job or a job that people perceive to be simple, like if I became, so people would consider like a job as a cleaner, like a simple entry level job, right? If I took over someone's body whose day job was a cleaner somewhere, I wouldn't know the code for the fucking broom cupboard. I'm hitting barriers immediately. You know what I mean? So if you're gonna pull on that the thread about the sleeping with his wife, all right, let's pull on 1,000 of those then, because there's a million reasons this doesn't work, and they start simple and get more complicated. But also, let's be honest, the thing that I think the reason some people will pick that out is because it is really upsetting as an idea. But that's part of it. That's a deliberate choice. They didn't write that by accident. Someone thought about it and put it in the script with the deliberate idea that it would upset you and make you hate Castor Troy more. That's really fresh. The movie doesn't hang a hat on it because it's trying to toe that line of being not too dark and gritty. It doesn't want that 18 rating. But hey, I'm pretty sure it's a rape. Like, I don't think the movie wants to call it that, but that's just tricking someone that way is not acceptable, obviously, and is a crime and is a horrible thing to do to this poor woman. Like, horrendous. It's one of the most despicable things in the whole movie. And Castor Troy is a character who does hundreds of despicable things across this movie. But it's to make you dislike him, and it's to show how far his moral compass is fucked. Like, absolutely. Because the thing is, as well, like, if he was, I mean, if it, and he's not a decent person, that's the whole point, he's the villain, but like, a decent person in that situation would jump on the fact that, hey, okay, great, I'm pretending to be this guy, I've got to pretend to be part of his family, at least he's not screwing his wife right now, so I can just sort of play along with that existing situation. You know, we have separate bedrooms or whatever. It doesn't matter. But no, he chooses to do that. He has an opportunity to not, and he chooses to. It is a truly villainous choice, and I love that. I actually really liked the way they handled it, because I always get annoyed in movies when, like, especially if it's science fiction and there's like a shapeshifter and they become a character and then they end up sleeping with someone else as them, and the other one gets then in trouble with the partner. The partner's mad at them. How could you not know it wasn't me? They're a fucking magical shapeshifter. This literally happened in a season of a show that I watched this year, so I'm not going to name the show because I don't want to spoil it. But the couple briefly fall out over it, and I'm like, I'm sorry, there's no way that person could have known. We're not talking about, like, partial. This is a fully, like, there's no reason for them to have been suspicious, basically. It's a fully convincing copy. This isn't even like Face Off, where it's a surgery where you could go, well, what did they do with the genitals? Did they make those look the same? Have they got each other's penises? Because that's weird. Is this body off rather than Face Off? But again, I hate that plot of, like, it's impossible for the person to have known, and the partner still falls out with them. In this, the thing she is most scared to tell him when she figures it out is, I've been living, she says it, I think she's like, I've been living with him as his wife, or something like that. And he just goes, he just goes, I know.
Well handled.
That's amazing. That's so, how much do you learn in an instant about all of these characters from that scenario? You learn what a villain Castor Troy is, and you learn what a strong, honest marriage those two have. So, again, I wouldn't criticize someone for bumping up against that, but I personally think, like, if you're going to start pulling on that thread, good luck.
I think the learning's different. I think the learning is how far he's come as a character. Like, I don't think that it's a reflection of the strength that their relationship has been, because we've seen multiple signs that their relationship has struggled naturally since the death of their child and his job and his hunt for Castor. I think his growth, what he's learned about what really matters, comes through in that moment.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I think that the hunt for Castor, the obsession of Castor, did put a wedge between them. But I almost feel a little bit like, and this is just interpretation, because, who knows? And also, I suspect the writers probably didn't put this much thought into it. But for me, it was more like they've always had a strong relationship, good communication, honest communication. It's just he continued to have that obsession with Castor. Because there's a point earlier in the movie when they're talking very openly about that too. They seem to have an open discourse from minute one of the movie, because he's basically saying, "Look, I know we all know that I've been buried in this, and you've almost very patiently allowed it to happen. Let me purge my demons. Castor's in jail now. I'm going to get a desk job. I'm going to be home. I'm going to be present more." That scene happens quite early in the movie, and my impression of it was that they always had a really good functional relationship with quite a high degree of communication, and to me, that moment plays more into that rather than look what he's learned, because it's not like at any other point in the movie he keeps secrets from her or anything like that. Well, he has to keep the one obvious secret from her, but that's because of his work. Although the idea that
that's plot.
Yeah, annoying plot. And that's my biggest thing, is like, because that's a logic bump even within the world. Do you know what I mean? I accept that within this world, it makes perfect sense to this technology to swap faces. I'll go along with that. That's the rules of this world. It's consistent. They can do that. Fine. Okay, no problem. It's also got a magic metal boot prison with magnetic floors, like, it's whatever. That's just this world. But the one thing that I struggle with, my biggest struggle, the thread that I always think about when I watch this movie, is why so few people know. Why they don't tell more people about the plan. The secrecy of the plan is absurd, considering the person they're tricking is in a prison and therefore isn't likely to come across this information. Christ, they could probably talk about it on TV and get away with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Castor Troy's brother, whose name I've forgotten off the top of my head, is not gonna find out. he's just not.
I think it's like Prolax or something. Prolax?
It's definitely not Prolapse. Don't Google Prolapse for your own good.
Not Prolapse. Prolax. Prolax. It's something like that.
Pasta? Pastor Troy. Oh, it's Pollux. It's Pollux, because Castor.
Pollux, there you go.
It's Pollux because it's Castor and Pollux are Greek. It's Greek gods. Which, by the way, for those of you scared, I'm not touching it. In the truth, I'm not going to go through who they were in Greek mythology. I'm just not. We did that for Hercules, and I'm not doing it again.
And that's a shame, because I paid such attention when you did it in Hercules.
Yeah, you did.
Talk to me about the action. The action didn't necessarily live up, or you responded to the reaction.
Yeah, I think the action is not as good as I remember, if I'm being completely honest. I think it's serviceable. Okay, from a filmmaking perspective, it's well shot. I think actually the issue is on the page, because the action, it almost feels like sometimes the script just goes and then they shoot at each other. Because when you think back to like some of the greatest action movies of all time, well, let's just think about the movie that I sort of like, for some reason, associate with this one, despite the tone being so completely different. But like something like Die Hard, right, which is one of the greatest action movies of all time. All of the action has sort of situational circumstances to it. He's not just walking into a room with the goal of kill the guy. He's trying to survive, or he's trying to get a thing, or he's trying to go to a place, right? Like he's always got a mini goal inside of each action scene. And the way that plays out... Oh, very quickly, because it's in front of me, and I before I close it, and I forget. I did look up the heights of Daniel Radcliffe and Jake Gyllenhaal, and they're Jake Gyllenhaal's much taller, so you wouldn't be able to do it, which is a shame.
That's a massive shame,
because I think that's the answer. Anyway, so I think so. You look at Die Hard, and it's like situational, and then he gets into situations within those action scenes, right? So like, it's not just people going into rooms, getting behind, cover and then firing at each other, or running around firing at each other, and you're just seeing a lot of shots happening and occasionally random, red shirts going down with explosions in the background. Like in Die Hard, it's like there's a real sense of tension because they're getting close to actually killing each other. Like there's the scene where I get the example I'll pull up is when John McClane is under the table. And the villain gets on top of the table and starts shooting through the table, and he's having to shuffle up away from the bullets. It's not just two people shooting at each other from across a room, which I think is kind of dull. And the movie tries to do other stuff where it's like they're on boats shooting at each other. Or they're in cars shooting at each other, or they're chasing each other through a slightly big warehouse.
The movie starts with a helicopter chasing a plane. Like, or a car chasing a plane.
Right.
Like, let's not forget that. Like,
yeah, sure, but that's that's another thing I've seen 100 times in movies. Do you know what I mean? Like, Toy Story. Toy Story's done that trope. You know what I mean? So, I think like a chase of a plane along a runway, and some of the just sort of like very generic chase sequences, the boat chase at the end, and then like some of the fight sequences are all a bit sort of uninspired, a bit generic. They're shot really well because John Woo knows how to shoot action, and they are exciting from that perspective. And there are moments of sort of more creative ideas, like the Somewhere Over the Rainbow sequence, which is where the kid has headphones on so he can't hear the shooting and the horror around him, and he's hearing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and we, the audience, hear that as it's happening. Now, that's also become a bit of a trope. I don't know how commonly used.
Say, even that's a bit of a trope now. I don't know how it was then, but...
Exactly, and I was thinking about that. Like, I was wondering when's the first time we started doing that. There's actually a very, very, very big prominent movie from this year, one of this year's most profitable movies, does exactly that as well. And so it's still happening to this day, but it's still a good scene, and it's an interesting choice for us of song, considering we just reviewed Wizard of Oz 2 weeks back. But I thought that was very funny when it started, because I didn't remember that was the song. I remember there was a scene where the kid listens to a song where the shooting happens around him, because I remember this movie quite well. It's ingrained in my brain in many ways, but I genuinely didn't remember the specific song, which was a nice, pleasant surprise. But yeah, look, and I don't think so. To go back to the action, I don't think any of it is bad. It is all serviceable, but I think it is all heavily based in either very simple people point guns at each other moments, or and pull the trigger from across the room, or like simple fist fights or like chases that I think don't amount to much, other than an excuse for John Woo to put his extraordinary eye for composition and editing to the test, because like I know he doesn't edit these movies, but like he's clearly got a really good eye for like how to shoot a thing so you know where everyone is in the scene, and that's like so rare, especially for American movies, and I'm glad Woo brought some of that sensibility to the film, and it's all shot really well. And there is one other really good creative moment, one of my favorites. It's while the action sort of abates. It's the mirror moment when they both end up on either side of the mirror, and they're like, I guess we're just going to have to kill each other then. And then they both pull back, aim their guns, but they're aiming at their reflection because it's a mirror on each side. So from each of their perspectives, they are seeing the face of the one they hate as they pull that trigger. That's genius. but that's a slowed down moment amongst an action scene. So yeah, I found the film failed often to get me completely invested in the action. I felt myself yearning for the scenes when the characters were talking, which is probably the opposite to how I enjoyed it as a kid, I imagine. But yeah, I was a bit disappointed with the action, especially because it's John Woo. Come on, like that's your thing, buddy. That's that's what you're known for. So yeah,
I think I agree with everything you're saying. It didn't. I think it's one of those things like the kid thing for me. It's the reverse. I agree with what you're saying, but I didn't bump up against it as much. And I think the reason I didn't bump up against it is because the film is such a roller coaster and so batshit crazy that I wasn't sat there going, I really love this action, these action scenes as a kid. How do I feel about them now? I was just looking for the next fucking hell moment.
Yes.
And there's a few of them, when they start hanging off the speedboat and are just surviving and are fine, where they fling off the speedboat again and land pretty much on sand and don't break every bone in their body.
Yeah.
All of that sort of stuff. The opening chase, the prison fight scene, and Castor's escape from prison. And I love that there's that amazing epic cliffhanger of he's escaped, but he's in the middle of the ocean on a remote middle of the ocean prison, and then that cliffhanger of shit, how's he going to escape this? He's on top, there's nowhere to go, and literally the helicopter is shooting at him, and the way he escapes is just by the other character going, "Oh, trust me, he's already here," and then we don't see how he's escaped. It's brilliant. I'm clapping. I'm loving this shit.
Yeah.
I take your point, but
if we're talking mad moments, the Mexican standoff is just ridiculous. It's like something from a cartoon. The two guys put guns to everyone's heads, and then more guys appear and put guns to everyone's heads, and then more guys appear from another faction and put guns to everyone's heads. It's just does anyone else fancy just getting in on this? Is there just a homeless guy from the street with a gun? I want in. Well, everyone else was doing it. I just wanted to be part of it.
I also loved the mirror thing, and the reason I loved the mirror is I think until that moment, there were, there were a few motifs and a few his bag of 2 guns and gum or whatever the fuck else it is. There are a few things that have been trying to take it seriously. What I loved about the mirror scene was I was like, oh no, they are Fast and Furiousing it.
Yes.
There are moments where they know what this is, and there are moments where they're trying to take this shit seriously and play it straight. And I thought the mirror one was a fucking great example of that. That's why I loved that moment, as well as, the clever symbolism. But I just loved the fact that there was symbolism within it. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is family.
Yeah.
This is Vin Diesel and his fucking long lost brother plots. I'm in.
Yeah. How can you tell Vin Diesel and John Cena are brothers? Because they've got the same spray tan. That's how you can tell. I agree.
Oh, side note, still my favourite. One of my favourite things in the Fast and Furious franchise that I don't think gets talked about enough is the complete character change of John Cena's character between the 9th movie and the 10th, when he goes from monstrous villain to fun uncle.
Yeah,
in one movie. I love it.
It's so good. I to be honest with you, 9 and 10 are my least favourite Fast and the Furious movies, but that element of it is very funny.
10's much better than 9, mainly for Momoa.
Yeah, Momoa does bring the movie up, that's for sure. Yes, that is true. Yeah, 9 was a slog. 10 at least has Momoa hamming it up. He knows what movie he's in. Yeah, I agree with you. There's lots of I will say that, so if the action scenes fail to raise tension, fail to give me those desperate struggles for success that, get me excited about the action and who's going to win, they do have lots of moments that are on the like the goofy or insane-ometer just like through the roof, you know, whether it be the as you said, like the boat chase, the explosions, the when they get flung to the sand, like from a really, like, for anyone going, oh, sand can be kind of soft, I'm like, no, they get flung, they fall from a really great height. Like, they should both be at the very least have a few broken bones, if not be liquefied. You know, they would not be standing and continuing to fight in real life, put it that way, if they'd have been through the accident they were just through. It's, you know, it's tons of stuff like that. It's like the thing I talked about at the beginning, the ridiculousness of the jet engine and Castor getting kicked into it. You know, the bit when the bit when they shoot at his feet and he's very conveniently stood on a random panel of glass built into the floor, so it can all spark up and the glass can go and light can go up. Like, there's so many choices that are just clearly like, this doesn't make any sense except for it looks cool. You know, the doves. The I don't know if that church was bussing in doves that day, but there's fucking hundreds of doves.
I liked when he's like, if you don't trust me, my blood type is AB. Here's his O negative or whatever, and then he smashes the photo and takes the photo, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's knowingly left blood on the glass for her to analyze. That's what this is then, because it would be way fucking easier. Like, look at the blood type. Oh, but instead of giving you my blood right now voluntarily, which would be easy, I'm gonna make you have to try and get it from him in an involuntary manner. Why not just give her your blood to test?
Cos movie, Chris. Cos movie.
He even then fucking meets her in the blood analysing lab and is like, I was hoping you'd come. If you were hoping she'd come, why the fuck didn't you go, let's go there now, you and me? Why not?
I've just, Chris, I tell you, I'm having fun talking about this movie because I've just realised we've managed to talk about this movie already for an hour. I don't know how that's happened. It feels like we just started.
Because it's great.
It is.
I
good.
love it.
It's really fun. Look, it's. I mean, there's so much to like you could pull apart in this movie. You know, because I guess the question a person who was a critic to this film would ask is, do you think the goofiness is intentional or not? And I think so, right? Like, I think they know what movie they're in. I mean, God, the next thing we should talk about actually is the performances, because we haven't even done that. We haven't even covered that yet, or the music, which is also really good. But like, if we're talking about the intent of the movie, because I feel like that's what would come up if somebody didn't like the film, you know, they would say, no, they weren't trying to be goofy and fun. They were trying to make a serious movie and they got it wrong. I don't think that's the case, though, right? It seems pretty self-aware, don't you think?
I can't decide, and I'm okay not knowing. Because, like I say, there are moments that seem incredibly self-aware, and there are moments where they're really trying. You know, the mirror scene we've highlighted, the fact that they went to the extent of he works for an organization that's quite secretive. Castor kills everyone that knew. They even go to the extent of setting up that they've not had sex in a while. Like they have thought about a lot of the elements. They're not just writing them off. There's not too many examples. Like, it's mad that the faces leave no scars, but no one says that or acknowledges that. There's no jokes. It's played straight. And don't get me wrong, I think it's funnier and more enjoyable because it's played straight. But I can't tell you with confidence it's a deliberate, we know what this is, and if we play it straight, it will be funnier decision. I cannot say that with confidence.
I mean, I'm not even sure.
It's a high tech prison where the shoes, like via magnets, like move the prisoners, like, and it's not played with a wink towards the audience. Like, I don't know the answer to that question. Do they know, and is it deliberate?
That's an interesting thought. I mean, I think the magnet shoes and the prison, the high tech prison, and the thing, it all can be explained by the script having been a science fiction film at one point or another.
But your question is, did they know what movie? They were still, regardless of that being the reason. There's still conscious choice in.
Yeah, but that's why I
script
think
changes.
that's what I think. I feel confident that they did know, because I feel like if they were taking it. I think the movie has a slightly different, not even slightly, I think it has because the physical stuff has all been thought out and it works in the context of the world. But the tone, that feels deliberate. I don't think you can accidentally create this tone, and part of it is the performances, which we'll get to in a second. And like part of it is just that like, it's obviously so over the top in its writing, but it is, I just don't feel like you write it that over the top by accident. And I don't think you perform it that over the top by accident. I don't think you shoot it with these over-the-top visuals by accident either. It's all of those things coming together that are just so needlessly extra that make the movie feel goofy and fun. And I wouldn't even use that. You mentioned like sort of funny. Is it funny on purpose? I would say fun rather than funny. I don't think the movie is like necessarily is hoping I'm laughing at it. I think the movie is hoping that I'm having a good time and fist bumping. Yeah, I always talk about that scene, and we who knew Fast and the Furious would come up this much. I always tell people who don't understand.
I did, because this movie is a later installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. I think that is the perfect description. If you're looking to someone who has not seen this movie but has seen those films, and you're looking to pitch this movie, I think it feels like it could be the 8th or 9th installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. Is the perfect way to describe this movie to someone that hasn't seen it.
But what makes those movies good, especially those middle ones, that sort of like 4 and 5 through to sort of like 6, 7. Let's include 8. It's 9 where it falls apart for me. But yeah, that sort of that middle chunk of Fast and the Furious movies from sort of 4 or 5 to 7, 8, that region. Those movies, what's so good about them is they know what they are, and they're leaning into how over the top they are. And I do believe it's deliberate in those cases as well. Less so with 9 and 10, and actually that's why 9 and 10 don't work. Is I feel Vin Diesel's self-seriousness creeping in as he gets more power and control as the movies get more popular, and I think that's actually the issue, is when they start taking themselves too seriously, and that's where we start going, because then the dumb stuff stops feeling fun when you know that the creators aren't in on the joke, if that makes sense. And so I feel like with this one they did know. I feel like they understood that I don't think there's any chance they thought they were making high art. Put it that way. I think they were very aware that it was going to be a fun sort of like adventure, like not adventure is the wrong word, because that evokes a very sort of type of family friendly movie, but a fun like action movie with tension, but also a lot of deliberately sort of dumb stuff that's going to be fun to watch and like very over the top. I can't point to anything specifically that's evidence of that, I suppose, which means I'm just sort of speculating, but I feel very confident in that. I don't know if you can do this accidentally.
Like you said, I think as you've said, the key word is fun. I think they wanted to have fun. They knew they were having fun. And what they maybe did deliberately do, and what they did deliberately know, was that if they had fun, everyone else would have fun too.
Yeah.
So let's use that to talk about the performances, because they're fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? It's one of those things where there's so many layers to what those two actors are doing in this movie, because not only are they doing sort of mini impressions of each other for big chunks of the movie, they're both playing two characters essentially. They're both actors are playing two characters, but they're also playing those characters. Well, particularly in the case of Nick Cage, he's playing a good man, sometimes succumbing to the madness of a bad person. Like the scene in the prison when he gets into the fight, that, I'm Castor Troy, that whole thing, when he starts to almost embrace the madness of Castor Troy, is so layered, because not only does he have to be John Travolta's Sean Archer character in Castor Troy's body, he has to have that character going this slow transformation and realization that he can do things in this body that he wasn't allowed morally to do in the other. And the temptation of just being able to, you know, do a murder, fight someone, nearly behead someone. Like it's just really interesting to see what he's doing with that. And that's not to say Travolta isn't doing an amazing job taking tortured Sean Archer's body and making him as wild and as loose as Nicolas Cage was playing Castor Troy. But once he's in that mode, he's that sinister character for the rest of the movie, and Travolta's doing an amazing job with that. Just an absolutely incredible job. And let's be honest, they each spend more of the movie being each other than they do being themselves. So it's even more impressive that they spend most of the movie reversed. But I
saw a clip of Cage talking about that and talking about how he wished he got to play Castor Troy for more than the pre-credits, essentially, and saying he wished he had the opportunity to do a whole movie as Castor Troy.
Yes, yeah, and I get that because he's clearly in that opening sequence, when he's doing Hallelujah and he's dancing around and he's like being an absolute psychopath on the plane, and like when he hangs out the window. I mean, the how quickly this movie makes you hate that character, by the way, when he needlessly shoots that agent and just chucks her out the plane. He's like, "One of yours, Sean?" That whole thing, like, incredible. And like, and he's like, "Oops," or whatever when he shoots her, and then like, all of that and his performance.
Well, surely, I don't know for sure, because obviously I only watched this yesterday. I haven't had time to engulf myself in the culture of it. But surely the iconic Castor plane moment is the fucking "I could eat a peach for days."
I could eat a peach for hours. Peach. Yeah, I was just about to reference that exactly. Yeah, a peach. I could eat a peach for hours. That whole thing is like very iconic and very like he plays it in such a weird, creepy way. He's so good. It doesn't surprise me that he was having fun doing that and would have enjoyed doing it for longer. So yeah, I think
the
movie works so well because of these two.
It was Cage's performance that I sort of knew about going into this, but I really think that Travolta is amazing as well.
Yeah, no, he is. It's because there's a wildness and a madness to there's an unpredictability as well to what Cage is doing in the opening act of the movie that he has to then match, and that is an almost impossible task. I mean, what's that quote from Community? Oh, I don't know, Troy. If I spoke in movies at different volumes for 15 years, maybe I'd get an Oscar too. Like. In reference to Nicolas Cage, he's a very unpredictable performer, and mimicking what he's doing when he's so unpredictable seems impossible.
Yeah, there's a story. I'm not particularly a fan of his recent work and attitudes, but there's a story Ricky Gervais tells of when David Bowie was in Extras, and David Bowie obviously performs a song in Extras. And he was talking to Bowie about it on the phone, and Gervais says something like, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking something with a Life on Mars vibe." And Bowie's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just knock up a quick fucking Life on Mars for you." I'll just bust that out for you. Sort of like that. It's just the impossible task. And yeah, Travolta must have seen those rushes and been like, "How the fuck am I gonna do that?" But I think he does it. I think he does it really well.
Not to step too much on trivia, they spent 2 weeks working with each other before production started. So they were definitely given a sense of what each person was going to be doing, and they sort of worked together closely to sort of create that.
Less apologies, because I'm fully stepping on trivia now, but it's relevant to this discussion, and I think it's an interesting place to have it, even though we could have it in the triv. I did go deep enough to know that the movie was originally written for, or the idea of it would be that it would be Stallone and Schwarzenegger.
Oh, there's a bunch. There's a bunch of pairs that were looked at first.
So we'll do alternatives. We'll do like the full list with the trim. But Stallone and Schwarzenegger specifically wouldn't have been as good, right?
No, it wouldn't have been. And I think the problem with that is, one, they're too similar to start with, to be honest. And I think, so that was... So yeah, just... so I can find it in the triv. Let's see. So it was originally written in 1990, and the script was first optioned by producer Joel Silver. Now, Joel Silver's come up on this podcast a few times. He produced Lethal Weapon movies, the Die Hard movies, the Predator movies, all of which we've reviewed some of at this point of those franchises. We've done the first Predator and Lethal Weapon movies. We've done the first 2 Die Hards, I think, at this point. No, we've done 3. We did Vengeance. So it makes perfect sense with that being Joel Silver's background. You know, he's had a huge amount of success through the 80s with Lethal Weapons, Die Hards, Predators, that of course he's going to bring together, 2 of the biggest action stars at the time, right? And it would have been a very different movie. But, the sort of science fiction version of this film with Schwarzenegger and Stallone in the leads certainly would have been box office gold and would probably have been a classic film, no doubt. Probably John McTiernan would have directed it, but I don't think that would have been the meatheady action film. I think action over character and story, and therefore you wouldn't have needed as nuanced a performances from the 2 actors. One acts like good guy, one acts bad guy. They swap it around, rather than being these very clever, nuanced pastiches of each other's mannerisms and stuff. There's no way Schwarzenegger and Stallone are doing that for a number of reasons. So I do think it would have been a good movie, but it would have been a very different movie, and I wouldn't have gotten the same thing out of it. That's my feeling on it.
I also think there's 3 key components, and it's Travolta, it's Cage, and it's John Woo. And I think you might not get John Woo if it's that casting.
Well, if it's that casting, it's also well before John Woo has moved over to America, because he's still in 1990 he was still making movies in Hong Kong like Hard Boiled. I think Hard Boiled was 91, 92. So he's a busy man in a different country at that point anyway. So you're definitely not getting John Woo if you're making it in 1990. And by the time you get to the year this movie is actually made, Schwarzenegger and Stallone are probably a little old for it, I would argue. Now, by 97, both of their stars have sort of fallen a little, I would argue. Not massively, but like enough, right? They're not necessarily going to lead movies like that anymore. But yeah, that's a very interesting potential combo. But I think it highlights how important Cage and Travolta are to this film. Thinking about that alternative. Very quickly, because I did write this in my notes, and I'll be annoyed if I don't mention it. All that technology, and they're still drawing on his face to mark out where they need to cut it with felt tip pens.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
Couldn't we have had like a projected grid onto his face or something?
Yeah, they're 3D printing an ear. You think they could do the other stuff with lasers?
Well, yeah, but it was just a laser, just like a light LED, not like LED, obviously, like a laser grid goes on his face, not to burn into it or mark it or anything, but to like just be on it for where to cut. Like, I don't know why we marked it with pen. That was really strange. We should talk about the brilliance of the face changing stuff. First of all, we have the amazing reaction of his partner, who's just grossed out and horrified by everything he's witnessing, which I love. He is the audience surrogate at that point for how weird and gross this all feels. But also, I love the restraint. And I know that some of this actually ended up coming from Cage. Woo, I think, wanted to show in gory detail the faces without the face, like when Castor wakes up. But it was Nicolas Cage that was like, no, we shouldn't show it. We should tease it. And that's way better. Seeing it reflected in the guy's glasses when he's like, what do you want? He's like, take one fucking guess. Like it's incredible. And those quick cuts where you almost see it for a second, are more than enough to give your imagination the kickstart it needs to imagine the true horror of what it is he's dealing with. And that is brilliant. Letting your brain fill in the rest is a masterful choice, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, fair play, Cage. It's weird, isn't it? Because you hear something like that, and you think, "Oh, that's a subtlety you don't expect from Cage." But actually, a lot of Cage's I think the subtlety, the pain of Sean stuff is way better from Cage here. I think he shows great subtlety throughout the entire movie were in Sean's quieter moments. And I think that in a way is the more impressive feat than the wild, crazy stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. The prison fight scene's really good. I've got that in my notes as well. I love that scene, and I love the performance in that scene. We've already kind of talked about it, but the unhinged stuff creeping in to the Sean with Castor's face is pretty, pretty brutal. Did you feel as I did, Chris, when I watched it originally, for the hopelessness of Sean Archer's situation after Castor has murdered everyone and he comes in to see him in the prison? And he's like, there's no one alive that knows you and me have swapped. You're in here. I'm going to go live your life and wield, and abuse your power. Bye. And he bails. As a kid, what always struck me, I remember how I felt more than I remembered, like, my opinion of the film, other than that I enjoyed it, obviously, because it's very rare you remember, like, specific things you think about a movie from that long ago, because I definitely watched this way too young, I'm sure. But, like, I've always remember that pit of my stomach feeling that the movie gave me, particularly on first viewing. That'll stick with me for the rest of my life, of, like, the hopelessness of that situation. Like, I don't see how he gets out of this. Did you feel the same when you were watching it? Because you got the experience for the first time. Or were you just kind of like, yeah, it's a dumb movie, he's going to shoot his way out of this at some point? Like, did it hit you at all?
No, it absolutely did, because I was still being hit by the fact that they even went to prison. It seemed like a bold move. Like, I get it, like, that's the best way for him to talk to the brother, rather than just turning up in the interview room. But absolutely felt a sense of, oh shit, what's gonna happen here, and wouldn't have necessarily predicted prison break and escape. But that was awesome. But at that point, I was already just going with it and not bothering to predict where the movie was going, because I think most people would watch the events unfold at the beginning and assume the entire movie was going to be about trying to track down the bomb and how they get the bomb, and not even necessarily predicting that both faces would swap and that the whole movie's going to be him getting deeper and deeper into Castor Troy's world of villains as he tries to uncover where the bomb is hidden, and then the finale of the film is maybe taking the bomb and it fucking exploding in the ocean and he's in the boat, whatever bullshit. Like, already I absolutely felt that fear of how's he getting out of this one, but by that point I was so swept up by the madness of some of the decisions, and continued to be until they're landing on sand without breaking bones, that it just didn't matter. But yeah, I think that moment works even as an adult.
Yeah, I agree, and there's catharsis on the other end of it, like after the prison break when he rings him to taunt him. And he answers the phone, Sean Archer, and he goes, well, if you're Sean Archer, I guess I'm Castor Troy. And then he hangs up. Like, taunting him at that stage is, like, absolutely deranged, but very, very badass.
Yeah.
The other moment we need to very briefly talk about before we get into Triv, Chris. Danny Masterson playing an attempted rapist.
Oh, is he the boyfriend? I didn't clock that it was him.
Yep. Look, Danny Masterson's character gets handsy with the girl, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't enjoy the catharsis of seeing him get the shit kicked out of him for attempting to do that in this movie. Sometimes life imitates art, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that. So obviously the Danny of it all is
feels weird in a modern context. Having
feels weird, feels icky. Like icky's too less a term for it. It's incredibly uncomfortable. What did you? Not that I'm trying to change topic. I just have nothing. I think that's all there is to say on that. It's not nice to watch. Did you think? Was he showing some humanity with the daughter in that moment and then telling her to protect herself? Obviously, that comes back later to his own detriment. But what did you think about his relationship with the daughter, and even like the family in general, because there's that I really laughed when he's like mistrust and uncertainty, this is becoming a real marriage. Like,
yeah, I wrote that line down. Lies, mistrust, uncertainty, this is turning into a real marriage. That's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie.
I think it's easy to focus on and look at and think about how Sean becomes engulfed in Castor's world, but I think there's a little bit the other way as well.
I 100% agree, and I do think that's the moment when he's sort of like in it a bit himself, which is when he saves the daughter. Which I think like his journey isn't as clear. It's not as clear what motive Castor would have to do that, other than that like just he's swept up in he's in that life now and he's defending his quote unquote family. But yeah,
he just wants the violence. He just wants the excuse to be violent, maybe.
Yeah, I think you could definitely put it down that way as well. And maybe in his head, he's like, he sees a chance to corrupt the girl too. Saves her from that, gives her the knife, teaches her how to defend herself. But there's also a part of you that goes, well, that's mildly altruistic. Like he doesn't want to see her. Like for a guy that's already grabbed at multiple women in the movie when he shouldn't have, it's weird for him to be so outraged at the assault that's occurring. So all you can put it down to is sort of fatherly instincts, which is strange when he's not her dad. So yeah. Nadia's joined me and she's brought tea. Now I'm extra happy. Nadia, it's too hot to be doing a podcast. I don't have a fan because it would make too much noise. Sucks to be me. Thank you. Yeah, the window is open. I know. It's not enough. There you go. She's brought me tea.
She had a tone. She had a tone then of, at this point, nothing has ever been your choice more than whether you continue this podcast.
Yeah. She's correct. That's the correct thing. So yeah,
I'd argue that in all senses. It's not like we're making money. It's not like the audience is there. And I let's not delve into this psychologically too much. But I think if I turned to you and was like, I don't want to do it anymore, you'd maybe try and have a discussion and fight it. And if you turned to me and went, I don't want to do it anymore, I'd go, yeah, all right. So, it's very much just balls in your court at this point, mate.
Do you reckon?
It's warm. It's your choice. No, I am. I say that for comedic effect. I think the other one would counter and try and stop it either way, but we're also very respectful of each other. And no, it's not going to happen. By the way, this isn't me leading up to a podcast breakup on air for the one listener that's worried.
That would be amazing.
But no, I think we're both too. I think we would. I don't. In all seriousness, I think if that ever happened, we know each other so well to know that the other one would have thought and wrestled with it so much that they wouldn't have reached the point of saying it were it not the decision. So I think the other one would try a little bit and then very quickly pivot to, okay, what's our exit strategy? But there's no signs of it happening.
Realistically, the exit strategy would be what happened with Steven University, which is just would say we'd come back soon and then just not.
No, I think if we were done, we would have to say, I think. But yeah, seriously, 2 listeners listening, like one of which is just a face-off fan. Don't worry, that's not happening. There's been, if you, without sounding tiny violin, if you knew the major life events we've both been through and still continued to record, even at a reduced rate, then you'd know that chances are the podcast is just still gonna happen.
You and I are gonna be like in a retirement home doing this fucking thing. Does anyone around here remember the movie Face Off?
Still talking about Breaking Bad. still talking.
It was the beginning of prestige TV,
Still talking about like the 10th Dexter TV show that they're on at that point. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
What's your question?
I can't remember. I wrote down a line of dialogue And I think I've already talked about the scene. It might be the mirror scene, but it's, oh well, plan B then. Let's just kill each other. I wrote it down because it's a badass piece of dialogue. The movie's quite badass in several points, actually. Like, you know, as much as I make fun of John Woo and his fucking doves, which I know is like a director trademark, like Wes Anderson and his symmetry, but fucking hell, mate. Like, I would love to see the dove budget on any movie that John Woo makes. But anyway, when he comes in and they're all flying at the camera, you know, before the Mexican standoff, it's a badass moment. You know, the casual way in which he kicks the shit out of the guy as he, you know, attacks his, you know, his quote unquote daughter in this case, you know, and then just sort of like is like, yeah, look, look after yourself. Here, have a knife. Like, you know, everything about this movie is like there's lots of cool badassery in this movie. You know, characters that are very morally compromised, doing quote unquote cool things. You know, even the choice for Castor to have these two dual wielded golden guns is very. It's big, you know, and the movie's full of these shots that almost like treat these characters like superheroes in the way that they're framed and the way that they're approached. And like, I understand that impulse. And I think that visually it is, you know, it's really cool. There's some cool stuff in the movie, for sure. There's a lot of badassery.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think it's very effective.
Yes. What else? Do you think as well that they kind of like I wrote down, and I'm not sure exactly what this is in reference to, but I wrote down his wife is already suspicious because of his behavior. She must have been, because there's no other reason she'd believe that insane story. Oh, I see. So yeah, so Castor Troy shows up at her house from her perspective and is like, I'm actually your husband. And she becomes suspicious enough that she takes the blood and goes to check it out. And I guess what I'm sort of saying is, that story of I'm actually your husband, even though I look like Castor Troy, is so bananas. The only explanation for her even, you know, listening to that at all is that she must already have been becoming suspicious that the man she was sharing a house with was not her husband based on behavior over time.
To some degree. Yeah, I think that's part of it. But you know, it is also, he's very effective in the moment where he's telling the story of their first date. Like, and the details he remembers and knows, and you know.
But isn't that's after she's already taken the choice to go investigate the blood. That's in the hospital, right? That scene.
I don't think so. I think it's at the house.
Is that one at the house?
I think so. I'd have to check, but I'm sure it's at the house.
I thought that one was in the hospital when she's like just looked up the blood thing and is like, and he sort of like confirms it with that story. I could be wrong. I could be mixing it up. Doesn't matter. Either way, I think it's. I do think there's an element of like the fact she takes any of that on board or listens at all to what he has to say sort of implies implicit, like sort of not implicitly, like sort of indirectly, that she was suspicious to begin with. Cool. I don't know. Look, it's a great movie. People should see it. It's dumb fun. We've spoiled the shit out of it, but we massively recommend it. You should go watch it regardless. It's so much fun. Top to bottom, it's a really well crafted piece of entertainment, and I think that is the key thing. It's deeply entertaining. I turned it on, saw how long it was, and was like, oh fuck. 2 hours and 25 minutes. I am going to be complaining about that on the podcast. That's great. Like, it flies by. It's long. It is long. That's long for a movie, and especially a movie from this era, by the way. Like, my God. Usually films from this are like a really solid, like, the window is like an hour and a half to an hour and 50. I don't, you know, yeah. Very rarely do movies from this time period have that length. But my God, the movie just flies by. Like, it really does. It moves at a clip.
I was surprised both to see the length and see that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
I've just looked at the script. You were right that it does look like that's in the hospital.
Right.
So that conversation happens in the hospital.
So I mean, and again, that's a smart choice because like it does sort of imply the fact before he's even had the chance, because he can't really explain it in the house, right? He's rushing. He's like, I've only got a few seconds to sort of sow a seed of doubt here, and then I've got to go because there's police everywhere, and I've snuck in, blah blah blah, and I've got the face of, you know, a very wanted man. So he dumps enough to make her to go, but like it's not enough really. Like she would have to have been already suspicious to make that choice, in my opinion. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, and she is. There's dialogue where she talks about him feeling like a different man and how he's changed and all that sort of stuff. So they show it as well.
Yeah. So did you want to do any sort of... I did a little summary of my thoughts before we went back to that. Do you have any sort of overall stuff you want to cover before we move into the Trev?
Yes. Woo! There you go.
Look, the fact that Nicolas Cage and John Travolta have not worked together since is astounding to me. Even more so than the lack of a sequel. The fact those two have never reunited in any movie since this is crazy to me. They were supposed to twice. There were two opportunities really close together. They nearly got them together for The Expendables 2 in 2012, and they nearly worked together again on a film called Killing Season in 2013. But apparently there was a scheduling conflict got in the way, and for Cage. And De Niro ended up being in that movie opposite Travolta instead of Cage. But fucking mad that those two haven't worked together. Honestly.
Yeah, it's a shame. They got great chemistry.
Yeah, they do. They do. Maybe it'll happen again. Right, let's do some triv, Chris. Say the thing.
Let's triv it up.
I'll give you some trivia. So, the co-writer Mike Werb, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, got the idea for the face surgery from a friend who had a hand gliding accident. They had to remove most of the skin from his face, reconstruct the bone matter, and then put his face back on. To give this more credibility, for a long time, the script was a semi-science fiction film set in the future, because obviously, as impressive as that surgery on his friend was at the time, it still wasn't quite at the level that it would need to be to make this movie's plot work. So, yeah. So it was originally written, as I mentioned earlier, in 1990 as a Joel Silver production. We already talked about Schwarzenegger and Stallone were in mind to play it, but obviously the movie doesn't get made for another 7 years. So in that time, the script found its way to a few different people and a few different actors were considered. At one point, it found its way to Michael Douglas, who initially was going to star in the film alongside Harrison Ford. Now, the Michael Douglas Harrison Ford version of this movie is a fascinating thought to me. Because they were both
I think it would work.
Yeah, they were both older, and I think the movie probably would have been like... So if Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone is the dial it up all the way to the action version end of the movie, you know, reducing the sort of more character stuff, you know, the more, I don't know, like, yeah, some of the more detailed character work stuff. I feel like the opposite is true of Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford. I feel like that version would have felt more like the movie like The Fugitive, where there is action in it, but it's, you know, there's a real dramatic heart to it and a character story that's happening. The rivalry between, you know, him and what's his face, Tommy Lee Jones.
Age-wise, they're not far. So The Fugitive is 4 years before. So you know, for people picturing Harrison Ford, you know, he's not quite. Picture The Fugitive Harrison Ford, and that. So it's older, but it's not. You know.
Yeah.
It's not Force Awakens older.
Yeah, older than what we got, but younger than you're probably picturing Harrison Ford based on modern day. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think there's a version of that works, right? Like I could say, it's a different movie. It's probably tonally something closer to The Fugitive, I think, which is another movie we should cover at some point on this podcast because that's another one I loved as a kid. But again, a bit more character, a bit more focused on the people.
Yeah, for those wondering, there's 12 years. Harrison Ford's 12 years older than John Travolta. I would have thought they were closer in age, just because, you know, Travolta's, you think Harrison Ford, 70s Star Wars, you think John Travolta, 70s Grease.
What's the age gap between Travolta and Cage? I assume Travolta's older, but I actually don't know that.
Yeah, I would have thought so. So, John Travolta is going off of their ages now. John Travolta is 71 years and Nicolas Cage is 61 years.
Okay, yeah. So Cage is 20 years younger than Ford when the movie comes out. And Travolta is 10. I got to tell you, Travolta, man, looking good in the movie. They all look good in the movie, obviously, but like he's a handsome man. Is that John Travolta?
Mm. Oh, absolutely, he is. Yeah.
Let's have a look. So yeah, it didn't work out in the end. Michael Douglas obviously doesn't end up in the movie, but he does end up taking over as executive producer and sort of vows to help get the film made because he likes the script, basically. So there was a huge period of uncertainty for a couple of years then, where we're not sure what's going to happen. Lots of different directors and acting pairs were considered. I'm going to read a few because a few of them are absolutely bananas. So Sam Raimi was going to direct the movie for a while, or was at least heavily considered. Rob Cohen, which would have been another strange but very interesting choice, considered. At one point, they announced Marco Brambilla was going to direct the movie. They announced it in mid 1995. They were like, "Yeah, it's happening. This is our director. We're making a movie." That doesn't work out either. So across this period of uncertainty, here are some of the acting pairs that were considered. Right, and again, each one of these just makes the movie immediately a different movie. One of the pairings was Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin, which I do. I've got to tell you, I do like the sound of.
That feels similar, like tonally, maybe not quite amped up to Cage, but yeah.
Yeah. The one that I really like because it's just proper cheesy 80s action schlock is Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal as a pairing. Which I enjoy.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice.
Denzel Washington and Wesley Snipes was a pairing, which I gotta tell you, Chris, out of all of these, the one I was most like, it does sound good. if we could have got that, I wouldn't have minded. That's the one. I really like that idea. I think those two actors would have played well off each other, but that's just me. And then another really interesting one, again, playing it older, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino was another pairing that was considered.
Nice. That would have also been good.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been good. I don't know what that movie is tonally. I doubt that movie's the science fiction movie that the script originally was, but it certainly would have been something, for sure. I feel like Washington Snipes would have probably still been the science fiction movie, as with Schwarzenegger and Stallone. I think if either of those combos happen, it's still science fiction, because those actors all felt, we've seen science fiction, but particularly Snipes did some great stuff. But anyway, moving on, the script eventually finds its way to John Woo, and he's responsible for picking Travolta and Cage. He felt they were more suited to the roles. He was right. Originally, Nicolas Cage turned it down. He didn't have much interest in playing a villain, but then when he heard he was gonna play the hero for most of the movie, he actually signed on. That's what convinced him in the end. One of the big changes Wu made to the script is obviously he was the guy that brought in the whole, let's bring this to the modern day. He felt that it would help focus on the sort of dramatic and psychological elements of the script. He thought that science fiction would become too dominating and would take focus off the character work. So he just decided, I guess, that the audience would just have to go along with science that was far ahead of its time. Which, yeah, fair enough. So Joan Allen.
I think I agree with you. I think that's the right decision.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think that's right. Joan Allen was John Woo's first choice for Eve, so she ended up getting the role. But the studio did want her to go with someone younger, and they also tried to make her the stepmother. Like the idea being that the death of the kid had separated John Travolta's character from his wife, and he now had a new partner who was the one in the movie. I'm glad they didn't do that. Wu was right to fight for that not to be the case, and to fight for Joan Allen, who's great in the movie. It's worth adding.
Yeah, agreed.
There was also a potential idea at one point. Now, look, I was trying to source this and I couldn't verify it, but there was a version of a script considered at one point that did away with the wives or the partners altogether, and had the premise that Castor Troy and Sean Archer had been a couple, and it had gone horribly wrong. Death of an adopted son divided. Now they were hero villain chasing each other. I don't know where this idea comes from. I don't know if it's even true. It sounds like an even madder movie than the one we got. I'm sort of here for it, but I think it changes the movie too much. I think it's too different.
Yeah.
Someone should do that movie, whatever that movie is, because it sounds mad. But it's probably not right for this one.
Yeah, I think there's already, there's a lot of moving parts already, and that would just create too many elements to it, I think.
But I sort of see the thinking, because I think the idea is that when they then swap faces, they already know each other quite well to be each other. Is thinking. I think that's maybe where the seed of that thought comes from originally. Again, I'm not against it. It's not right for this movie. It's a really interesting idea though. Chow Yun-fat was rumored to be in this movie. Obviously, not a shocker with John Woo. Yeah, it didn't end up happening, and apparently, my brain. Why is my brain dying? Nicolas Cage. Sorry, I couldn't remember Nicolas Cage's name for a second there, Chris. That is not good. That is the sign of like dementia setting in or something. Nicolas Cage is a huge Chow Yun-fat fan, and presumably a John Woo fan. I mean, who was? I mean, Hard Boiled is so good. Like, I think a lot of people in Hollywood were like, in this era, particularly mid-90s, once John Woo transitions to America and he starts making films in America, there's a lot of people like going, oh, he's here. What else is who can he bring some of these people with him? And obviously actors like Chow Yun-fat then did transition over and do amazing work. But like there was an idea that he was going to be in this movie. It was quite a small role. So the two agents that work with John Travolta's character that he yells at occasionally. It feels a little bit like the movies like The Girl One and The Guy One.
Yeah.
Chow Yun-fat was going to be one of those two agents. And that feels like so small a role for him. And I feel like, again, Nicolas Cage, who's a huge fan of Chow Yun-fat, would have been very excited at that prospect, but it didn't work out for whatever reason. So yeah, he didn't end up appearing. Contractual obligations or whatever. So yeah. Other casting potentials. Mark Wahlberg nearly played Pollux Troy. I'm glad that didn't happen. I think I
thought the guy we got was great.
Not only is that guy great, but he's so unusual. It is the most of all the performances in a movie with a lot of big performances. His is the one, the most like both understated and like interesting in that he's making really surprising choices. I feel like there's any other actor gets that role. It's Alessandro Nivola that plays him. I think they make big, bold choices to sort of match Cage. They're brothers. But instead, he made him this sort of introverted, like, quiet, like, thoughtful version of the character. And I really respect that. I mean, obviously, some of that's on the page too, but, like, yeah, he really leaned into that and did a great job. So, yeah, a big fan of how that worked out.
Yeah, I think that worked out well.
Yeah, I already mentioned Mike Werb, who was one of the co-writers on the movie. The other writer was Michael Collery. So, Paul, I just realised I didn't actually list the second writer, and I probably should credit him. So Jennifer Tilly was considered for the role of Sasha. Now, obviously, the role ultimately went to Gina Gershon, who does a great job. I cannot pretend, though, that I don't just adore Jennifer Tilly and would have enjoyed seeing her in this movie. Again, it would have been very different, wouldn't have been as sincere, and I guess you do need that character to be a bit more of a... You can't have her giving a performance as big as what Nick Cage and John Travolta are doing, and I guess Jennifer Tilly might have brought that energy to the role, but I would have enjoyed it, because I like Jennifer Tilly. So yeah, it didn't work out, but that was one possibility. There was also... This is... Okay, right. Sometimes, Chris, there's a piece of trivia that sounds really normal and then at the end just loses its fucking mind, right? And never gives further context. Now, I was tempted to Google this, but I decided not to because I just don't want to know. One, if this is real, because I don't want to be dispelled of the belief that this is a thing that really got considered. But two, I don't even want to know what the thinking was here. I don't want to be spoiled on them and someone go, oh, actually, they were thinking of this. But I'm going to read this out as it was written. So I have not written the words that you're about to hear. In early drafts of the script, Archer went to Castor's mother's place to hide out. Obviously with Castor's face. The writers wanted the mother to be played by either Elizabeth Taylor or Jack Nicholson in drag.
I'm here for it.
There is no further context given there. Jack Nicholson in drag.
I'm in.
Yeah, me too, I guess. Yeah.
You'd watch it. You'd love it.
Oh man, that's all we'd be talking about. We'd be sat here right now going, all right, well that's enough about Jack Nicholson in drag. Can we now talk about the rest of the movie? 2 more hours.
Yeah, absolutely we would.
Incredible. I can't believe that nearly happened. Before shooting an emotional scene, John Woo would play soft, sad music to help the actors get into character. Travolta insisted he didn't need it. Now, I'm going to read this out as it was written as well. He nailed a scene in one take so well, he earned the nickname One Take John. Now,
that feels like, look, I don't want to be rude, Dan, but it feels like a slightly lazy nickname.
Not only does it feel like slightly lazy nicknames, I tried to find the source for this because my suspicion was that the source for this was John Travolta. So I tried desperately.
Just at parties, at events. Hey, John Travolta. Yeah, no, Danny. Yeah. But nowadays they call me One Take John. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
Now it is true that
Dad, while you read this, I need to nip. I've downed a lot of water. Is it alright if I nip to the lid?
Of course, yeah. Because
I feel like I've done this the last 3 podcasts in a row. Apologies. I get up. I have a big glass of water. You know, it's there. I've not finished my water from the night before. I down it, I do a podcast, I need to pee, and I apologise.
I think that was more information than we needed, but I appreciate the apology nonetheless.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I don't feel like you need to explain yourself, you know? You do you, buddy. You do you.
I feel like I do, because I feel like people are like, just stop drinking the water. But I don't think it through. And the problem is I have no control over this bit. For all I know, Dan's got another hour of Triv to go. So whereas Dan might sometimes hold it because he knows he's looking at the list and he's like, I can get through this. I got no concept, so I'm a peeing.
He's a peeing. All right, off you go. I'll tell you what happened in my research because I wanted to track down One Take John's source because I was mildly convinced it was John Travolta. I think was the source of this story. So I Google the story and I'm looking at articles and I am finding absolutely nothing. In fact, the closest I came was I found a Facebook post where someone was repeating this nickname and saying that was true. Not someone from the cast or crew, just someone sort of telling that story. So I'm scratching my head and I'm like, where does this even come from then? So I get desperate, and I got desperate because this is the first time I have ever done this in the history of this podcast. I turned to AI because I was like, someone has to know where this has come from. It's repeated in so many places. There has to be a source because otherwise its constant referencing is fucking madness. So I put it into AI, and this is exactly what AI replied. And I'm going to read it verbatim because I took it down. I thought this was very funny. Based on the available information, while the idea of John Travolta being known as One Take John for his performance in Face Off is widely mentioned, it's difficult to pinpoint a definitive source for that particular anecdote. Despite its widespread discussion online and in some informal contexts, there is no solid, verifiable evidence in the form of a direct quote from the cast or crew that confirm John Travolta earned the nickname One Take John, specifically for any single take in the movie Face Off. So, I tried, everyone. I got really desperate. I looked, and in the end, I turned to AI, and AI couldn't find it either. I think this is bollocks. That's what I'm landing on.
I mean, the evidence would point that way, wouldn't it?
Oh, the lack of it, I suppose. Yeah, because all I can find is people repeating it without citing a source. Because what I expected initially to find, and what's happened on previous podcasts, is I found a story like that where someone's like, oh, and they were calling the actor One Take John. I'd go, okay, is that true? I'll Google it a bit. Ultimately, I find like an article from like fucking some weird magazine that published some of its articles on the internet in like 95, early internet, and they interviewed a cast member who said, oh, we called him One Take John, or even like someone just jokingly saying it and then it's taken out of context and becomes the trivia it becomes, and I can verify it one way or the other. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing from no one. This has come from absolutely nowhere. I'm sure John Travolta was very good and professional on set, and it's absolutely possible that he was so efficient and so good at his job he did things in one take. I don't deny that that's possible. I dispute this nickname being a thing. So yeah, I really tried because I wanted to verify that, but I was absolutely stumped with that one. No evidence of it whatsoever. One of the things that happened on set though that I thought was very funny, we talked about John Woo playing music to give the actors into the right emotional state. The crew, one of the shots that happened was with Nicolas Cage actually happened on his birthday. And apparently, Cage had already gotten himself emotionally charged up for the scene when John Woo surprised him with a birthday cake. Cage very graciously celebrated and did that, but apparently privately afterwards expressed a request not to let that happen again with John Woo because he was already emotionally charged up for the scene. It was the wrong time to do it, basically, which is fair enough.
Yeah, I think Cage can be a pretty mad man by all accounts, but I think that's fair. I don't think he's being unreasonable there.
And he handled it super well too. Like he didn't flip off the handle. He waited till after and had a private word with the guy. Like that's like how sensible, normal human handles being frustrated at a choice someone else makes. Like that's the way to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. We haven't talked about this, but one thing I will say in this movie's favour as well is practical effects for almost all of the action. All of this was shot on locations. They blew up real boats and or miniatures. There's a huge amount of tangible real world work. And according to the producer, Barry M. Osborne, a lot of the bigger fight scenes were originally planned to be green screen shots for ease. But when Woo got on board, he was like, no, we're going to really have them fight on the deck of a boat, and we're really going to have the airplane running down the runway. And I think the movie benefits from it massively. I felt how tangible all of these action scenes were. I mentioned that they lacked certain amounts of tension, but I did also very much specify from a scripting perspective. From a practical, how they were shot perspective, they were all shot brilliantly. So yeah, thumbs up to the production crew here because they did a really good job, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's hard to quantify the job they did in a way, but I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And the dedication to doing it when everyone else was being allured by green screen. 97 was sort of post Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, and everyone's experimenting with, hey, what can we do with all this technology that's going to make shooting movies really easy without really putting much thought into how it might harm the realism of the film and the believability of an action scene. And John Woo clearly just smart enough to know, in moderation, please, if we're going to do that.
Can I go completely off piste because this is the only time it's going to be relevant to bring it up because we've recorded the podcast where it should have come up. We've just recorded a podcast 392, I assume, based on what Dan said earlier. Of
328.
Sorry, 328. And we reviewed Murderbot and Department Q. Department Q has an appalling use of green screen that completely takes you out of the episode and scene. There's a scene where two characters are in a car driving, and it's fucking horrendous. I assume you know what I'm talking about. I forgot to mention. I forgot to mention it at the time when we reviewed it, and I should have done because it's mind melting. If Face Off isn't using it in 1997 or 1996, presumably when they filmed, then Department Q's got no excuse.
Agreed. Some of the prisoners in the fight scene and the prison scenes are actual ex-convicts recruited by John Woo because he wanted real people. Fair enough, give them some jobs. I don't see why that's a problem. I'm sure they were very appreciative of the work. The scene where Adam is listening to Over the Rainbow on portable headphones was John Woo's idea and was not part of the script. Paramount refused to finance the extra scene, and John Woo used his own personal money to make it happen. He was paid back later when the film turned out to be profitable. And apparently Woo had used Woo used a similar idea in Hard Boiled. So yeah, it's not the first time he'd done that notion of like a song to an action scene. People should go watch Hard Boiled, by the way. Hard Boiled's very good. Now here's a funny one, and it's a shame we haven't reviewed the movie in reference here first, because I think this would be even funnier with that in mind. But the magnetic boots the prisoners wear in the prison, those are the same props worn by the Goombas in Super Mario Brothers, the 1993 movie with Bob Hoskins. That is one of the most unhinged movies we will ever cover on this podcast, and it is coming at some point, I promise. That movie is infamous for all of the reasons you're anticipating, and it's gonna be a shit show to review. I can't wait. That's definitely on the list. The movie that made Nintendo so scared that they waited 30 years to make another movie because it was such a disaster. We'll come back to that. I'm excited to cover that one. So, another massively unconfirmed story. Okay, so there's a story that John Travolta didn't get along with his stand-in. The stand-in apparently didn't like John Travolta so much he tried to sabotage the movie somehow. Apparently there were legal proceedings, but he got fired midway through. Then, an extra from the jail scene, who had already done a tiny bit of standing in for Nicolas Cage, became John Travolta's stand-in, and they got on so well, he's still John Travolta's stand-in to this day. Now that part...
Oh, wow. That's mad.
That part's true. That last part. So there's a 2005 article in the Ocala Star Banner, and they talk about Nick Loren, who was hired as an extra in Face Off, pulled aside to be a stand-in, originally briefly for Cage, on a day when his stand-in wasn't available, but ultimately for Travolta. And they did indeed strike up a friendship that has led to him being a stand-in for him in dozens and dozens of movies, and they still work together today. That's all true. The part I could not verify was this previous stand-in having difficulties with Travolta and trying to sabotage the movie. I do not know where that comes from. I could not source it whatsoever. Again, I found a few Facebook posts talking about it, but nothing from any official source. And you'd think if it was a legal thing, that would be a story somewhere. I am inclined to believe there were issues with Travolta's original stand-in, because otherwise, why do you grab an extra halfway through production and make them his stand-in? It doesn't make a lot of sense that he would gain a stand-in mid-production pulled from the pool of extras. But I don't know, and I certainly couldn't verify it. So maybe there were issues with the previous guy and they fired him. How difficult that was, I just don't know. I couldn't prove it. Let's see. Oh, a lot of people apparently caught the flu while filming the prison scenes. Just a number of people. It just spread around. That's very unfortunate. I hope everyone was okay. The flu sucks. And a whole cast and crew picking it up at once is just very unfortunate, in my opinion. You know, the scenes were a bit cold and the location's a bit dirty, so I can't imagine that helped. But yeah, I just thought that was very interesting. The plane had to be destroyed in one take. They only had one shot. So they put 13 different cameras on it from different angles because they were only going to get to blow up a real plane once. So that's fair. I thought the music in this movie was really good. I was genuinely blown away by it, and I looked into it, and there's a guy called John Powell who did the music for this. He was a pupil of Hans Zimmer and still works today. He's done a huge number of kids' movies, so he's responsible for the music in How to Train Your Dragon, Happy Feet, Shrek, Chicken Run, Kung Fu Panda, but he's also done more live-action stuff, like he worked on the Wicked films, the Bourne films, X-Men The Last Stand. Yeah, we all make our mistakes. He did the Italian Job remake. Well, okay, 2. We'll give him 2. But he worked on Solo, a Star Wars story, and he even did Still, that Michael J. Fox documentary. So this guy's had a huge career, and I'd never really I'll be honest with you, I didn't know his name. But yeah, little shout out to John Powell, who's had an excellent career, and his work on this movie is great. The music's really good.
Yeah, and I mean, still, like, if you've not checked out Still, the Michael J. Fox, documentary movie, go check that out. And the music's a big part of what they do in that film needs an awful lot of rhythm to it and movement and pacing, and the music absolutely adds to that.
I agree. It's funny, when I was putting that trivia together, I put Still last because I knew you'd have something to say about the movie Still.
Yeah,
and we both love that movie, but Chris has a real soft spot for that movie. I knew that would be an opportunity. A very funny one. John Travolta asked the writers if they were making fun of him with the ridiculous chin line. They explained, no. Castor is such a narcissist that he would hate having anyone else's face. Doesn't matter what face, he'd call it ridiculous. Very well done, boys. Beautiful. That's an excellent lie. I'm not being difficult here, but he's got a prominent chin. He must know this. There's a running joke in Doctor Who where, like, Thingy has in Matt Smith's tenure, but with the nose, right?
Mm.
It's
his chin as well, isn't it? Matt Smith there's some chin references, I think, as well.
Oh, there's chin references, but he makes a joke about Arthur Darville's character where he keeps signaling the nose, I think, whenever he references Rory in the first season. It doesn't matter. Anyway, my point is, it's a very common thing for, like, people have features, sometimes prominent. It's fine. It's not even a criticism. It's just an observation. You have a very prominent chin. That's okay. You look good. I just told you were a handsome man, Mr. Travolta. Please don't be mad at me.
I don't think he's listening.
But I think that's a very diplomatic answer, is my point, from the writers, to be like, no, it's because Castor Troy's a narcissist. He'd hate any face. That's very diplomatic. That's clever. Anyway, the studio insisted John Woo take the slash out of the title because it's face slash off. He refused because he was worried people would think it was a hockey movie. Now, that trivia confused me. So I quickly Googled it, and face off is what they call it when they start or restart a match, because it's two hockey players in the center, sticks in front of each other, helmets almost touching, and they drop the puck between them and they have a little fight, and they call that a face off. And then it's who gets possession of the puck has an impact on then what then happens. So he was worried that would be related. I don't think anyone would have been confused, but keep the slash. I don't care about the slash. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, although I think it's better with the slash. I do. Like, there's a certain element of, like, it representing, the cutting of the faces, it representing multiple meanings. I think the slash is actually, I think it sets a tone. I think the slash is actually very important.
Sure. I have no horse in that race, but I would not argue with someone who did. I think that makes perfect sense. I just think in the grand scheme of things, while it does do that, if it didn't have that, you wouldn't be like, oh god, if only that title had a slash. You'd have just watched the movie and happily enjoyed it. Does that make sense? That's why I'm a bit like, I could take all of it. But yeah, it's fine. It does make it look distinct on posters, though, I will say. The studio wanted Archer and Sasha to sleep together, to sort of to have the two characters paralleling each other. Obviously, Castor Troy had ended up sleeping with Archer's wife, so Archer sleeping with Sasha makes a lot of sense. John Woo argued against it, and I agree with John Woo. We have to demonstrate that Archer is better than Castor. So, good. Correct choice. I don't know what the studio
Yeah, that's fair.
Here's one that the nerds noticed. I do love a bit of nerd triv when someone just spots something, particularly in the, a detail that, like, probably most of us will glimpse over. If you look closely at Castor's blood test results, his glycohemoglobin, A1C, is higher than 6.5%. This means he most likely has diabetes.
Do you think that's deliberate or that's a
No
deliberate touch?
idea.
Or...
I have literally no idea. My only assumption is just that like, yeah, my only assumption is just that like they got a real medical report to make it look legit and didn't actually pay too much attention to what that might imply. Or maybe they were like, oh, let's make it so he's diabetic. I don't know. I can't decide if that's a character choice or a bit of an accident, but sure. A real-life face transplant was accomplished in 2012 on a guy called Richard Norris. He'd accidentally shot himself in the face with a shotgun the same year the movie came out, 1997, and didn't get a face transplant until 2012. Good for him. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that other than that the technology did catch up. X number of years later. Although it probably wasn't. Look, I have no idea. I've not seen a picture of this guy, but I can't imagine it was quite as magic and seamless as the ones in the movie. Because that. No, I don't think we can do that even today.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Regular skin transplants today aren't as seamless and like they are in the movie.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm happy the guy got that, especially if it was a shotgun accident, because that sounds horrible. When Dubov is attacked by the guards at the prison, he dodges behind a box marked InGen. That is, of course, the company that was cloning dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. So yeah, I thought that had a little nod to Jurassic Park, maybe an accident. But yeah, I like the idea that the Face-Off universe and the Jurassic Park universe, where science has gone mad, are the same universe. That actually doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
The Over the Rainbow featured in this movie, performed by Olivia Newton-John. So that's Olivia Newton-John
nice
singing.
Touch. Oh, that's a really nice touch. That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's. Yeah, you got to assume that's a deliberate choice, and that's. I like that nod.
Yeah,
that's great.
You'd have to hope. You'd assume so. I mean, it's possible that he was just like, I'd like a cover of Over the Rainbow. Who's done that, and maybe he was given a list, and one of them was Olivia Newton-John. Then it just became irresistible, or maybe it was he didn't have a song in mind at all, and he was looking through all sorts of stuff, and he stumbled across that, or maybe he literally had it in mind from the beginning. I don't know, but as we know, that sequence came from John Woo. So, who knows? Who knows? So the movie comes out in June 1997, the same month as Nicolas Cage's other action hit Con Air, which came out a few weeks earlier. The films were shot consecutively from summer of 96 to spring 97. The two productions actually slightly overlapped at one point. Imagine, like, Con Air and Face Off come out a few weeks apart. Like, that's what a career. Like what a moment for you must be having. That almost rivals Jim Carrey's insane run from 94, 95, when it was like Ace Ventura, The Mask, and then what was the other one? There was three that came out really close together. I can't remember what the third one was, but anyway. It's worth noting Con Air made a little bit more money than Face Off, but didn't matter because the movie had an $80 million budget, but returned $245 million. So this is definitely a profitable movie. Even if we're doubling that $80 million for marketing, it still turns a profit. And then, of course, that doesn't consider the subsequent years of home releases, streaming deals, all that jazz. So this movie's 100% been very profitable. It is surprising they've never managed to get a sequel off the ground. But as I mentioned, they've not for lack of trying, they've just never quite managed to make it work with scripts and stuff. So it's time, Chris, for Cars Exist.
Meow.
Oh, yours was good. Yours was really good. So I don't know. There was no volunteered Cars Exist trivia this week, so I did do a little bit of visiting my favorite website, the Internet Movie Car Database, and I confirmed the police cars used in the movie are 1992 Ford Crown Victorias, which were, and have been used as police cars in various states in America. The airport chase includes a 1997 GMC Yukon and a 1992 Hummer. And then finally, the scene with the sort of like the guy that gets handsy in the car, the Danny Masterson character, that car, which is a really cool car, is a 1984 Chevrolet Corvette C4. I looked that one up specifically because I thought that was a really awesome car. Driven by an absolute monster. Cool car. It's not the car's fault. The car doesn't pick the owner. This isn't some wand shit from Harry Potter.
Yeah, I mean, I was already fairly, grossed out by the conversation earlier, but now you've introduced the notion of the car choosing, the actor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. So there you go. That's everything.
No, there's no. I didn't know if there was going to be a range. I didn't know if there was going to be planes, helicopters.
I thought so. I nearly did that, and then I was like, you know what? We like that joke is gonna. No one cares, right? I could look up what was the boats for the final chase in Face Off, and I could do that. And then I was like, does anyone care but me at this point? So I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I had a handful of cars. I didn't end up doing it. But yeah, there could have been arrangements. You were prepared to make noises. That's why you're sad. You were ready for helicopter noises, boat noises, all that stuff.
Yeah, maybe, but I think you're right. Yeah, I think no one cares is a very fair point.
Yeah. And we had a couple of movies with very heavy triv, particularly Wizard of Oz, which is maybe one of the most involved trivias we've ever done. I'm proud of it, and I thought I'm really pleased with the research I did, and I'm getting better at that all the time. And I'm very proud to say that I put the work in, and I think it paid off. But sometimes it's just like this is for me and me alone, and I'd have to really go digging to find out who's listing the boats that appeared in this movie anywhere. There isn't an Internet Movie boat database, I don't believe. Maybe there is. I'm not Googling it. I don't want to know.
Yeah, you don't want to start going down that rabbit hole.
No. Cars exist is enough to amuse me, and unless there's something particularly interesting about the other thing, I'll try and keep that to a minimum going forward. Anyway, the big question, Chris, because a little peek behind the curtain, guys. Chris and I were sort of pre-discussing. We figured out our trilogy. We already talked about that last week. That's going to be the Austin Powers trilogy. So we're doing that right at the end of the season. And then we were pre-discussing our Christmas movies and realized that we'd sort of made promises already about what those might be in previous years, where we talked about what movies we might cover next. So that didn't leave. Once you put the Christmas movies in, and then and we're already up to this is already the 4th episode, and then the trilogy at the end, that only leaves an episode or two that haven't been decided what they are yet. So I told Chris what my last remaining choice was going to be, because it lands on a particular date. And I guess we'll leave it as a surprise, and we'll say it at the time. But there's only basically one movie left on the board for this entire season. We have yet to decide what it is. And it's this one. So I'm very curious, Chris. What's next?
I don't know yet, Dan, because what has also happened this series is there has been a slight pattern, and, I love a pattern, of me not choosing the films.
Yes.
Matt chose the Goonies for me.
Yep.
Jess has chosen the Christmas movie. Fate chose the trilogy.
Yeah.
Instagram algorithms chose the... Yeah.
I chose Jungle to Jungle because you gave me a choice of 3 films to choose from.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is going to be painful, because I am going to list the entire list because I want to hear your thoughts. But we are going. It felt mad on a series where my chosen sort of theme for my choices are I'm not choosing. Mm-hmm. It seems mad and crazy to not bring out the wheel because we've used the wheel before.
I had a feeling the wheel was coming.
Yeah, because it's just logical, right? So the wheel's back, right? So here's the thing, Dan. I went out to near as damn it everyone I know and said doing another series of rewind reviews. I want some choices to chuck in a big wheel of choices. Oh no! Give me some films.
Oh no!
It's astonishing how many people. Now look, I don't expect anyone I know. I know people in our lives aren't necessarily listening to rewind reviews, but it was funny the amount of people that suggested films we'd already done. My favourite being, because I don't mind any of that, I wouldn't expect anyone to know With the exception of my cousin's wife, who very much should have known that not suggesting every single Harry Potter movie wouldn't have been wise. We've definitely... That was the only one where I was like, we've talked about this. Like, we've done those, surely. But here are the choices, Dan.
God, I'm terrified. Go on.
Do you want to add one? Because fuck it, you haven't. Do you want to add one? I know you sort of chose before, didn't you?
I did. I can add something to the will. Add one if you want. I've got a film I can throw in.
Give me a choice to add to the will.
Yeah, I'll give you About a Boy.
About a Boy.
And the reason that is because the other day I stumbled across the soundtrack again, and I was listening to it. It's a good soundtrack, and it's a good movie. And I thought, it's a shame this season has mostly been decided because I would consider that. So. Putting that in the wheel is an easy win.
So get ready, Dan, because I'm going to read you the whole list because I want some. What do you want? What do you not want?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's quite a long list. Strap in. Right. About a Boy, The Last of the Mohicans, Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Return to Oz, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Deep Impact, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Caddyshack, Cocktail, 8 Mile, Casino Royale, Catch Me If You Can, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Terminal, Heat, Magic Mike, Holes, Chicken Run, Cats and Dogs, White Chicks, Four Lions, Valiant, Transformers the Animated Movie, Batman 89, Alien, Akira, Billy Madison, Little Miss Sunshine, Pan's Labyrinth, Children of Men, The Indian in the Cupboard, The Tuxedo, A Knight's Tale, The Black Hole, Empty Man, Spice World, Scary Movie, Dunstan Checks In, Dead Poet Society, Santa Claus the Movie, Lost Boys, Le Mans, Silent Running, The Thing, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Bruce Point Blank, Hard Boiled, Memories of a Murderer, Demolition Man, Rocky, The Room, Happy Gilmore and Labyrinth. Are the choices that have gone into the wheel.
Wow. So there's a ton of movies.
Anything struck you?
Well, there's a ton of movies in there we're just going to be doing. Like, there's so many in that list that are just like, they're on the list. We're if you don't think we're getting to Gross Point Blank, like, you're out of your fucking mind. I love that movie. Like, that's a proper video store discovery as well. That one where like I was in the video shop. I picked up a film, didn't really know anything about it. Took it home, probably inappropriate for my age range, but loved it. That's a great choice for this because that's like not only is that one I really love and would pick ultimately, but it's like it's inevitable. That one's a definite. White Chicks is probably the one I don't want to do. If I'm being honest with you, I would actively want to avoid that film. Is the rest of the list were either films I would pick anyway or films that I think would be an interesting discussion. The one that really stuck out to me as let's not do this one is White Chicks. I really hope that doesn't come up. So I feel quite safe because it's such a long list, and I know I'm cursing myself here, so I'm going to touch wood, but like. With a list that long, with that many films, I'd be very happy to review. The White Chicks is the only real big red flag one that I noticed. But then again, it was a lot of films listed very quickly. I guess if you got a way of visually sending me the list so I can quickly skim through it again and see if there's anything else that sticks out.
Yeah. Hold on. I will WhatsApp it to you.
I will say Fern Gully is another one that I'm like, okay. Fern Gully's a really interesting choice because that's like Robin Williams' little passion project, that environmental film. I've always held that, unfortunately, I don't think Fern Gully is very good. I think it captured a lot of kids' imagination. I accept that, but I just think as a film, I don't remember it working particularly well. So I'd be interested. But again, interesting discussion. Four Lions is great. Transformers the animated movie is great. God, there's so many good choices. Now, Alien, I would actually maybe think about because Alien, I've always thought we would do that as a trilogy. So actually,
I can remove Alien. I did remove. There were other ones where what were some of the? There were other ones that I did remove on that logic. I mean, obviously, Aliens it's difficult because there's so many of those movies. It's the Jurassic Park thing of isn't it? But I will remove Alien. I kept Jay and Silent Bob in, even though that's out of order, but just for the jeopardy.
Yeah.
I thought Santa Claus would be funny because obviously, we're about to then also do Christmas movies. I thought it was interesting the movies that multiple people picked: Spice World, Akira, and Silent Running. I haven't even heard of some of those movies. So the fact that they were in there twice.
Akira is a classic, and it would be finally you'd be reviewing some anime, which has been requested many times.
Yeah.
Akira's great. I'd love to do Akira. Rocky's great. Demolition Man's on my list for sure. Funnily enough, I've just spotted Hard Boiled, which we actually talked about a bunch this week. So that's quite.
I knew that when it came up. I was like, oh, that's when you said, oh, we'll review that at some point. I nearly went, well, we might.
We might. Yeah, Dead Poet Society is obviously a full classic. Spice World is one of those ones I've been really interested about because I think Spice World is a better movie than it has any right to be, considering what it is. And I'm convinced Spice World will review well. And that's been on my list to test the theory. Yeah, I loved Spice World as a kid, but every time I've seen clips of it as an adult, I've been like, that's really funny. Like, is this just like a forgotten classic? Because it really feels very well tightly written in the clips, at least, and my memory of it is strong too. So yeah, we'll see. Four Lions is another one that I'm just like, yeah, that's an absolute stone cold classic. We should definitely cover that. But yeah, the only one on here that I'd be like nervous about is that I genuinely wouldn't want to review is White Chicks. So
yeah,
I guess it's time, Chris. It's time
we spin
that wheel.
There we go.
And while it's spinning, I will say as well, Return to Oz would be an interesting choice. I just clocked that one. That's another good one.
Oh, can I... Oh, the wheel. It never disappoints. Because, I'm with so many choices, how can it be a choice that is in some way really? You've gone for that? So that's a tease as to what it is. Don't worry, it's not White Chicks. I will say that. But it is come on now. Are you kidding me? But I'm pleased. I'm looking forward to reviewing the movie. I will say, Return to Oz. My favourite thing about that is that was Claire's choice, and she put not knowing we'd just done The Wizard of Oz either. She put Return to Oz. Sorry. And then I said, oh, that's funny. We've just done The Wizard of Oz. That would be appropriate. And then she said something like, the most shocking sequel pre-Joker 2. Which I thought was a funny way of saying it.
Well, I'm interested in that one because I recently read the premise of it, and I think the premise is brilliant. So I'm curious as to my memory of it from when I was a kid was just that it was a really fucking weird movie, super weird. I only ever saw it once, I think, and I don't think I loved it because I didn't watch it again. But I'd be curious if some of the ideas hold up because I reread the premise and was like, that does sound good on paper at least. But yeah.
Yeah, because is she older or whatever then?
No, that's the biggest mistake actually. They she's supposed to be roughly the same age, only a year or so has passed, but they cast younger. They cast actually closer to the age that she should have been in the original movie because they went a bit older with Judy Garland. So the biggest hurdle of the movie is it's supposed to be a sequel, yet Dorothy looks 3-4 years younger at least. But the premise is she goes back to Oz. And the Emerald City is just rubble, and none of the emerald is there. It's all just stone, and basically there's a big rock king that lives in the underworld, and his world had been ruined by all the emerald being mined. So he took it back. So Oz has been ruined by this guy, but he's kind of right. And I read that premise and was like, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good. I think that's an interesting premise. So yeah, I will see. Nice. I don't remember it that well, but yeah, it's on the list. We'll get to it at some point, I think.
Well, I'm just about to apologies. I hit my mic just then, but I'm just about to send you, Dan, a photo of the winner for you to announce.
Oh, brilliant. I don't know what to say to that, Chris.
No, I don't.
Oh, that's very funny. For listeners, the wheel has selected About a Boy. So no one got to choose but me.
Well, I'll introduce a fun. We'll only do this once, Dan. Do you want to stick or twist? I mean, it's your film, so I assume stick.
Well, no, but the thing is, we've always okay. We have to stick because we've done this in the past, right? I have criticized every single time, right, that we have done a pick and it's been like, oh God, You have said, we go again. And I've said, we're going to have to go with whatever it came up with first. That's the universe is selected. Because there was one where, where the same movie came up 3 times. But even when that was happening, I was like, we can't keep spinning it until we get something we want. That defeats the purpose of the wheel. And I was very adamant on that occasion. So for me to now say, let's spin again, would be very much counter to what I've argued in the past, even though there is a part of me. Even though there is a part of me that's sad for the fact that a bunch of people went to the effort of choosing films. I ended up sticking one in at the end.
Well, that is the only argument. Have you already chosen this season? But that wasn't a film that you chose. It was choices I gave you, and also arguably. We should have. Well, that should have been a discussion when we put you in. We chose to put you in. You're in the mix now. It's come up about a boy.
Brilliant. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I've been itching to watch it. I almost changed one of my choices for later in the season to About a Boy because I listened to the soundtrack and it was on my mind.
Do you want to know what the spin again? Because I have spun again. Do you want to know what the spin again choice would have been?
If it was,
I think this would have been.
If it was White Chicks, I would have been very unhappy.
No. It was just a movie in the list, but it would have been a movie I'd have been intrigued to do. It was Holes.
Oh, you know what? I don't think I've ever seen Holes.
Have you read the book?
No. I knew.
Yeah.
I remember it coming out. I remember the heavy marketing. Those fuckers, right? Whoever made that movie, they sent a bunch of marketing to my school that they put up in the library of my school to promote that movie. And even as a kid, I recognized that felt icky. There were leaflets. It was on they had a poster they put up, and I guess it's because movie based on a book, they thought that was the way to do it. But like, that felt wrong. That felt wrong to me.
It does. I remember reading the book and thinking the film was a kind of typical of an adaptation. It felt, it felt like the book was better and all that sort of stuff. But
I see.
But anyway, that's not what we're doing. We're doing About a Boy, baby.
Wow.
There you go.
Well, there you go. The universe is delivered.
Where can
That's
people
very
find
funny.
us, Dan?
They can find us in a few places. If you're going to complain about the rigged nature or seeming nature of that, feel free. I'm genuinely quite surprised by that. You can get us on mail at nothingbutstatic.co.uk. All your complaints addressed to the wheel. YouTube.com/nothingbutstatic if you'd like to support us by sort of subscribing, liking some of the posts of these podcasts we put up on there. Of course, you can interact with the podcast on any of the platforms that it's available on. That also helps tell the algorithm TM, to tell more people about it. But if you listen to this on iTunes or if you listen to this on Spotify or wherever you listen to it, there's usually some sort of way to interact with it, review it, whatever. If you do that, that makes it more likely to be spread. Of course, you can do some old school spreading of the podcast by just telling a friend if you'd like. Or the main thing, keep listening. We appreciate that too. Obviously, we do have a Patreon. If you'd like to support us in a more financial way, that would give you access to our review of About a Boy right now. And you can hear me feel slightly guilty about all those people that didn't get their choices. There was a lot of choices. The odds of it landing. The reason I felt so confident was how unlikely it was that it would land on the one I did. Because the list was clearly very long, and I was like, come on, it's like a 1 in 40 chance or something stupid. Like I don't know how many films are in there, but it's massive. Like the list is huge, right? How many films is that?
According to the will, it is 50. I think it's like 50. Oh wait, hold on. I've got them as a list. 1 second. Let me just number the list. That'll tell me.
I'm just curious because like that, my brain.
55.
So I had a less than 1% chance. That was a 0.5% chance. Oh no, wait, no, it's a 2% chance. I went the wrong way.
Yeah,
that was a 2% chance. I had a 2% chance of that cropping up, and so I didn't feel too bad when I threw a film out there into the pool. That's so funny.
I think there's so like you say, there's only really one stinker One. There's a few films I'd be
No,
nervous about.
I've got to tell you, it's not.
I might use that list again.
It's not that it's a stinker. I want to make that very clear.
I mean, sorry, that was me explaining. That I can see me going to this list again.
Right. Yeah, but with White Chicks, I just think I've never seen that movie. I think there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that are going to have to be had around that movie, but that's me guessing based on what I know about it. And I'm not sure I'm in any way prepared to discuss the movie White Chicks. And the idea of becoming prepared to is quite daunting. But equally, right, I've noticed the same person also put Four Lions on the list, which is one of my favourite comedies of all time. So, I don't want to.
Yeah, I suspect. I
don't want to make. Are we naming people from the list to the public?
Yeah, you can name Hannah.
So Hannah, who chose 3 films for this: Valiant, Four Lions, and White Chicks. Great choices. I don't want to make it sound like I'm being rude. I'm just terrified at covering that movie.
Yeah, I suspect Hannah means the choice of White Chicks. The only choice I think that is is someone trying to have fun in their heads is my mate Phil choosing Magic Mike. That's by all accounts that's a genuinely good movie.
Another one I've never seen. The excitement of this list, actually skimming down it, is there are a handful I've not seen. It's rare we watch movies on this podcast that I've not seen. He did also choose Heat, which is a classic. So so lots of choices on here. Anyway, look, I'm very grateful to everyone for taking the time to put those in. I'm very sorry that my choice ended up winning that 2% chance.
Oh, dude, no one's following it up or listening to this, so don't worry.
You're
apologising to no one.
And if we wait long enough, we'll have covered at least one of the movies on this list, and we can say, oh, that was your choice. That we did it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to this list at some point next series and choose one for it.
Yeah, we'll work our way through that list slowly. Cool. So, look, thank you everyone for listening. Yeah, if you've got any thoughts, I've already done all that. Patreon, yeah, we've already done that too. Yeah, I did the whole thing. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate the you guys sticking with us, particularly because this podcast ended up being way longer than I anticipated. But the review was way longer than I anticipated. To be fair, I didn't think we were going to talk about the movie for as long as we did. I finished watching it. I was like, that was so much fun. I don't know how much I have to say on it. Apparently, about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes worth is what the answer was. Because I said to Chris, the trivia is really short this week.
Yeah.
I've just realised that you had a hard out. Have we gone past it? No, we haven't yet.
No. But we probably do need to end now,
all right.
so I can.
With that in mind, then I'm going to pass over to Chris, who ends this thing.
My name's Chris Billingham.
My name's Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound.